I think a good outcome of this happening is the possibility that creators in that space will do more to moderate their own communities. Did it have to be this litigation action, or could it have been a different action? I don't know. But like, that is the strongest case that I would make, is that these creators existed in a world where they were totally emboldened. They demonstrated no sense of responsibility for moderating their own communities. That to me is so much more significant than the litigation.
Does taking the view that Ethan was neglectful in the contraction of Giardia, as described by Ethan, to someone with that view who expresses that view, are they culpable?
Now I'm gonna do the lawyer thing.
Let me ask the fuck, Hutch. You won't let me talk because you know it's absurd.
No. Hold on. I'm gonna lawyer you. I'm gonna lawyer you, bro. I will answer your question straight up, and we'll get into my questions. Okay, ask the question again. Ask the question again. Yeah, Ethan Klein, you had some thoughts.
Yeah,
we dabbled a little bit on the pod. Why don't we unpack it a little bit more?
So basically, I have this view that I think that we need to be clear regarding what we're talking about in this controversy. Are we talking about the legal justification for a lawsuit? Are we talking about the ethical justification for bringing the lawsuit, by which we mean ought the lawsuit be brought? Or are we talking about like other misconduct? Does that affect the ethical outlook? And I kind of have different views on this lawsuit. And I can talk about my incentives for even commenting on it. But in general, I think that a lot of my views have been misconstrued or misinterpreted to be something that they're not. And I think that what I'm proposing is not actually a very controversial view at all. And that most of the disagreement with my view has to do with like perceptions about my motivations or about relevance or emphasis. And so that's basically like kind of my starting set of assumptions is like, let's be clear about what we're talking about and let's see if we agree. And then let's talk about why it matters.
I don't know if I have a strong interest in having a conversation about ought the lawsuits have been brought. That's not really the thing that interests me too much, because well, that's
let me give you a point of contact.
That's a good question. Well, let me. So like that to me is like the least part of the interesting part of the conversation, because like that seems totally subjective. Like, and it's difficult to unpack that. You know, like I don't know what I would do if I was in his if I was in his spot. And like you for example, I think you said that he has a strong case, right? So like if these laws, if these copyright or regulations or statutes or whatever they are, if they exist and somebody abused them and he's, you know, using the legal mechanism to get a remedy for that, then you know, are we saying that that means that it was justified, or like what kind of angle are you going for here? Like, do you want to have a conversation about should he have brought the lawsuits?
Well, I think that's a conversation that a lot of people do want to have. Whether you want to have it, I'm not sure. But just to give you a point of contact, I stopped by your stream a little bit recently and I said hello. But I heard you talking about like the propriety of like Denham's statement and analyzing whether she should have said this, whether she was throwing Casey Tron under the bus. And so in that context, what we're really talking about, whether it's subjective or not, listen, I take all this kind of normative analysis to be subjective in the sense that we're just talking about what do you think about ethics? What do you think ought to happen? I do think that people have a desire to talk about the underlying ethical justification for all sorts of things, including but not limited to legal action taken by individuals. And I think that there's a lot of people who care about that. And I think that you care about, regardless of its subjectiveness, the ethics of certain people's conduct surrounding this, including the ostensible triggering incidents that brought this about, the CPS call, the conduct of the snarkers. Like, this is all norms laden. And so I think it's a little bit much to accept that people are like, it's irrelevant to talk about ethics. It's irrelevant to talk about moral justification, because everyone's talking about it. And if someone asks me about it, I want to be clear about where I stand. And the more, and separate and apart from that, I think there's a broader norm that ought be established to like not blatantly lie to your audiences. And all of us kind of like do this kind of debunking shit when there's like, if Tim Pool is accused of lying about the shooting or whatever, no one's stopping to say like, huh, why are you calling out lies? What do you care?
But you're saying,
now I can give an explanation, but
you're saying that Ethan is lying about any kind of motivation to like protect his IP, or do you call it IP or copyrighted content? And but you're saying that that's a lie because the real motivation is just like personal grievance. But why can't it be both? I don't understand why
we can get into that conversation, and I definitely want to have this conversation.
I mean, to me, it's very obvious that he's motivated by both, because like he's already on the record as being someone who was trying to bring attention to what he considered to be like lazy React content. And what the three people that he sued did went even beyond that. Like it was beyond just like lazy React content. It was, we might say, malicious in nature. You say that has no like bearing on the case. It's like malice or whatever. But the fact remains that they were being malicious about it. Like they were openly advertising that their intention was to siphon views. And it happens to be the case that all three of those people were participating in an internet pylon that was like some of the most vicious behavior from online communities that I've ever seen in all my years of being on the internet. Like how they behaved around the whole CPS thing was fucking vicious. It was fucking vicious. And so like, I think he was motivated by both of those things. Like, was it right to bring the lawsuits? I don't know if I would have done it, but I understand why he did it. I don't know if that's a cop-out answer, but I understand why he did it.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure we're not talking past each other. So I definitely want to have a conversation about ought he have done it. But before we get into that, I just like want to make sure that you think it's worthwhile to even have that conversation, right? Like, so we're not even talking about the thing itself. It's like people will question, why should we care about these ethical oughts and whether something is good or bad? And I thought I was hearing something approaching that critique or that observation from you. And so before we get into like the actual meat and potatoes, which I do fundamentally reject the view you just presented on different grounds, I want to make sure that you consider that conversation to be valuable.
It can be, depending on, sure.
Let me give you a little insight here.
Because like intellectually valuable? What do you mean?
So people will say things like this: Pisco, this is a boring conversation. Who the fuck cares about whether these lawsuits were the right thing to bring or not? Or like, or someone might say something like, I don't care whether it was right or wrong to bring the lawsuit. And I just want to make sure you're not proposing those views of like indifference. Like maybe you are indifferent as to whether it was right or wrong to do, but presumably you think that that's a worthwhile conversation when analyzing, especially now this is getting a little bit into the argument itself, but I still do want to have the meta conversation first to make sure that we both agree this is a valuable conversation that we want to have. For someone who presents a lot of his lawsuits or his legal stuff as vindicating some broader interest, either in a particular group or in a broader community, I think that we ought care about whether we agree with the assessments being rendered by Ethan and co.
It's not that I'm indifferent. It's more that I'm agnostic. Like you can, and maybe that sounds like a cop-out answer. Like I want it both ways. Like
no,
it's not that I'm avoiding taking a firm position. It's just, I can understand why he did it. And I can't tell you if I would have made the same decision because I've never been in that position. I don't know what it's like to have children and then have government called to your home to like try to force you to justify that you should be allowed to continue to have guardianship over your own kids. Like, I don't know how I would have felt in that moment. I don't know what kind of actions I would take after the fact. But I'm also sympathetic to the idea of like, fuck, I mean, that must really suck to be bogged down in that kind of litigation. It's not like I have no sympathy for people like Casey Tron or Frogan, but I understand why he did it. I do.
I don't think there's anything inconsistent with you saying you're agnostic on the ethical question, but also maintaining that it's a worthwhile conversation to have. That's what I want. I want to say those are distinct questions. Whether or not you have a firm view about whether it's good or bad is different than whether or not you think it's a conversation, that the conversation about whether it's good or bad is worth having. And what I want to avoid more than anything is someone after the fact saying, who the fuck cares about this shit? Or like you saying, I don't even give a fuck about the conversation. Like, clearly you care. We're having this conversation. It's maybe like the third or fourth time we've had a conversation about this. You have a vested interest. And you can tell by the way, I'm just going to be honest, you cover some of the other conduct at issue here, that you're weighing the respective normative weight of what the parties are doing. You're thinking about, is it good for Denims to throw Casey Tron under the bus? Is it okay for, you know, Hassan Piker to not donate? And so I think it's a little much to accept that this is a conversation that the ethics of bringing the lawsuit, who cares about that? But all the other aspects, you know, the ethical assessments of the other conduct, that stuff is interesting to me and I will comment on it. So just to be super clear, I do want to get into the question here, and let's also talk about the other issue, the legal issue, whether I think it's important or not, and the lies for sure. That you think that this is a valuable conversation, or one that at least that you're interested in. Because if you say I'm not interested about whether, okay, no, but I want, if you want what I want, I just want you, like, this is what I want. I want us to agree that this conversation, it matters. It matters whether or not Ethan did the right thing. Doesn't it matter to you?
I don't know how to evaluate that in an objective sense, though. That's what I'm saying. I really don't. This is such a messy thing for me. Like, I don't think I can give you an answer of like, this is unequivocally bad or this is universally bad or good
I'm not
thing.
saying, no. That's getting into the meat about whether it's good or bad. That's a separate question. I'm being very precise here. You care whether or not, like, you care about the conversation. You care about the relative arguments. You care about thinking regarding whether this is good or bad. And I think that's clear. I mean, if you're really going to say, well, I spent all this time talking about the ethical implications of Denham's conduct, of Hassan's conduct, of the Snarker's conduct, but I'm not going to consider the ethical implications of Ethan.
I'll consider it. That's fine. If you have a case to make in terms of like why you think he shouldn't have made the case, then I'm genuinely open to being persuaded. Like, awesome. There's a universe where you could convince me that it was a wrong thing for him to do. Go for it.
No, just because I get shared these people who really don't get it, and they're making comments like, who the fuck cares? Or like, who asked Pisco? Who the fuck asked whether this is good or bad? Like, you guys all care about this. We all care about these norms, and the proof is in the pudding. The fact that we spend any time on it, the fact that people feel vindicated and feel that this is just desserts meaning these people deserve what's going on. That is a normative conversation. It's saying this ought have happened. It's good that this happened to these people, and this is deserved. This is either a punishment or some kind of retribution or some kind of like justice for Ethan, and that is intrinsically invoking normative assessments. And so what I don't want to hear is this kind of like banal statement that you get from the Redditors that are like, who the fuck cares? Who asked about the ethics? As long as it's legally viable, that's the only thing that matters. That shit is cooked. Agreed?
What's cooked?
The notion that the only thing that matters is the legal argument. And this is coming from someone who obviously cares a lot about the legal argument. My whole reason of examining this in the first place was because it was a new copyright case, and I have an interest in copyright, and I've been following H3 for a while, and even their first case, and I actually, you know, really praise them. And if you watch my coverage, I really praise them for their initial lawsuit defense against Bold Guy. But as someone who does care about the legal argument, someone saying like the only thing that matters is whether or not it's legal or not, and whether or not they have a good case.
No. I mean, it's like, it's interesting conversation, and like I can just lay out very clearly to you the pro case, like the bullish case, the case for this potentially being an appropriate action, and then you can tell me your case, and we can go from there. But
so to be clear, this is not a view that you necessarily hold. It's
one that you want to provide. I hold the view, but again, there is a conflict in me. I'm just being 100% transparent. Like, some things I'm not.
You think it's a good thing that he brought these lawsuits against Denims, Casey Tron, and Frogan? Correct?
I think a good outcome of this happening is the possibility that creators in that space will do more to moderate their own communities.
Right, but you understand
that's the value that I see, and so that is a potential. That is an argument in favor of Ethan taking this action. Did it have to be this litigation action, or could it have been a different action? I don't know, but like that is the strongest case that I would make, is that these creators existed in a world where they were totally emboldened. They felt like they had total impunity. They demonstrated no sense of responsibility for moderating their own communities. And in some cases, they explicitly or implicitly egged on this kind of what I view to be like significant harassment. Like it is to me a really significant form of harassment to do a CPS report and then that ends up with a government intervention. That to me is so much more significant than the litigation.
A malicious CPS report that is based either on lies or distortions, things like that, right?
They didn't
like you wouldn't say like a CPS report by itself is bad. No. It's when it's informed by either lies, distortions, or exaggerations, right?
They had a vendetta against Ethan, and that's all.
It's motivated by bad stuff, either lies or bad motive, some kind of. So it's not just a mere calling of CPS. It's calling CPS on a basis that is improper, such as trying to hurt someone, not actually being concerned about what's going on, including lies in whatever you're telling CPS or exaggerations or things that can't be reasonably obtained. Yeah, okay.
They crafted a narrative about him and Hila that they were these ultra-Zionist genocide supporters. It was a full-on mass psychosis event for that community with a collective audience of hundreds of thousands or millions of people. And in that collective audience pool, they crafted a narrative about Ethan and Hila. Number one, that was just a total fucking lie. But number two, that narrative that they delusionally all convinced themselves was true, at least maybe some of them did, but there was also an element of like bad faith to this as well. And so like, I think they wanted to believe that about him. So it's possible maybe the person who made the report, like got themselves to believe this lie about Ethan. But the whole point is like, it was fostered by those creators. They had active role in making a mockery of the whole situation.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? The creators like fostered this in their own communities. They helped
intended for them to call CPS.
They helped promulgate these lies about Ethan and Hila, and in doing so, well, did you say what lies?
I said okay, lies.
Okay,
so I'm understanding. So how they're fomenting it or how they're fostering it isn't with a specific intention for a kind of action, but doing stuff with its. Okay,
I'm not saying that, but in the case of. I would have to go back because it's been a minute since this drama kicked off. This was like a year ago or a year and a half ago when the CPS stuff happened. I don't even remember. But with Denim specifically, she was watching like a Bad Empanada video where he was doing these. And you would agree that Bad Empanada is a malicious actor, right? Like just one of the worst malicious actors in the entire space, right?
I mean, that's my understanding of his reputation. I have seen him do things that I would consider to be malicious, and so my answer is yes.
Like he will lie. Like he will lie. He will call people pedophiles. He will lie. Like his whole thing is he thinks that it's justified.
I don't consume his content. I understand that's his reputation. I've seen instances, for example.
It's not just his reputation. He has a storied history of like maliciously lying about people that he identifies as enemies.
I'm just telling you my what I have access to. What I have access to is I know he has a reputation for malicious lies. I know he has a reputation for doxing and for saying stuff. And I know that they have their own justifications for it, publicly available stuff. But I kind of have a different view on that issue. And I think that there are self-standing harms and stuff that he engages in. For example, regardless of whether or not it's technically publicly accessible, I think that certain kind of revelations of information, even publicly available information, can sometimes, I think, be considered norm violating. And so I've seen him make certain connections that I find to be malicious. I can't recall them though, as I sit here, and I'm not going to claim to know more than I do.
Let's put it this way: Hassan had a no Bad Empanada video policy at one point because
that's what I mean.
He had even acknowledged that Bad Empanada was completely deranged and unhinged. And it wasn't until Bad Empanada started doing like anti-Ethan content and like, I guess, pro-Palestine content that Hassan just consciously decided to forego that or to get rid of that rule. And then he started platforming Bad Empanada repeatedly over and over again, knowing that Bad Empanada had this like very unclear record of malicious behavior. And then people like Denims watch this Bad Empanada video about Ethan. And if you, again, it's been like a year and a half, but like her chat on the screen that day, when she was watching this video, they were all doing like CPS talk. And it was just like, she was making no effort to moderate. Would you agree, for example?
And you feel she has an affirmative obligation to do that, right?
Of course. Don't you?
I'm not sure what the standard is for. So if people are calling for CPS calls in the chat, I'm not sure that I would moderate those opinions. If they have the opinion that, would you?
1000%. You would. Okay. I mean, I don't you would. Come on. If you had people in your chat that were like, I don't know, Hutch seems kind of dodgy. I think he's like beating his fiance. I think we should call the cops. You feel like you don't think you'd have a responsibility to jump in and be like, no, hang on.
I'm not sure. What I'm telling you is I don't have that intuition that this is an expectation or norm that you have an affirmative obligation to, like, I have deranged chatters say totally unhinged stuff. Like, for example, they should be killing Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They should be throwing all these illegal immigrants into the fucking waters. And that's their political opinion, or that's their norm-based opinion. I don't know that I guess I don't know if I share that intuition. Now, if it's actively calling for such things that occur, everyone call CPS. Maybe that's different. Maybe that's or if
that's what I mean.
You should dock people.
That's what I mean.
When I would say, like, then I say have an affirmative obligation, but then you have to answer the subsidiary questions. And I do want to take a step back in a second, because I think that we're in the weeds in a way that I'm concerned about, and I'll tell you why. You have to then see, like, she saw that, and that she.
No, not. Yeah, no. Sorry, I didn't mean. Yeah.
Yeah, so like, I think the nature of the obligation depends on what the what the expectation is to read chat. Like, often I don't read my chat, but like, I want to be clear. I think that there are affirmative obligations to prevent your chat from encouraging illegal conduct, encouraging false things, encouraging government associated things. That for sure. But an opinion, for example, is, so I'll give you the following thing. I think it's justified for CPS to be called. Should that be moderated?
Just in a general sense, or in this particular sense?
Oh, shit. It seems based on this that, like, they're eating poop, and they have a wrong opinion, which I think it's the wrong opinion.
No, wait, hold on. Sorry. Are you talking specifically in this context, or just generally? Like, are you saying?
Well, let's do an abstract first, and then we'll go to this context. Okay. So in general, if someone said, there isn't this massive whatever you're characterizing as a wave of harassment against Ethan Klein, and this someone in your chat says, I don't know, this is kind of fucked up. I think that someone should call, like, I think it would be justified. I'll put it there.
Sure, if it's a good faith observation, sure. Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, so we can disagree with that, but the nature of what the message is, and whether she read it, I think matters to me. Hutch, I do want to say though, I wanted to take a step back, right? Like this is all stuff that I think indicates that we care deeply about the ethics of people's conduct online, and that we're interested enough. We had the conversation about Taylor Lorenz, for example, on the chorus stuff, and all of this matters. That's kind of the base root here.
Sure.
That said, I want to be clear about whose conduct we are assessing, right? Because it could be the case that the conduct to call CPS, I do believe that it's immoral, incredibly immoral, to call CPS on the basis of what Ethan said regarding the Jardia stuff. I think that's unhinged. I wouldn't do it. I would condemn people who would call CPS on that basis. And just because, though, that is unethical doesn't mean that everything in response is also ethical, right? So I want to be clear about whose conduct at every stage that we're talking about we're analyzing. So who do you want to analyze first?
Well, we can't analyze Ethan's actions in a vacuum, though. We have to evaluate the conditions that arise that led to that.
Agree.
Yeah.
But what is our dependent variable? What are we trying? What is the ultimate focus of our inquiry? Are we trying to figure out whether it's right or wrong for Ethan to bring the lawsuit, or do you want to spend some time to build that, to talk about various different actions that different people took regarding Ethan?
You had asked me, I mean, I was giving you my argument for why litigation could be justified, could be a justifiable response to what happened. And that's where I'm coming from with it.
So let's start with Casey Tron, right? It's justified to sue Casey Tron for copyright infringement because I would assume you would say, A, she committed copyright infringement, right?
You tell me. You're the lawyer here. Well, I don't know.
Presumably, you wouldn't be in favor of suing Casey Tron if you didn't think that she committed.
No, if it was frivolous, no. Yeah, generally.
And I want to ask you, because first of all, I don't think any of these cases are frivolous. I just want to make that 100% clear. Anyone who says it's frivolous, that's wrong. Why would you be against someone bringing a frivolous lawsuit in this context?
Maybe I'm a bit like a purist about the system, that the system shouldn't be used in that kind of way. I don't know. I'm just intuitively against it.
I think that's right. Yeah. Right. I think that's right. I think that we have this intuitive notion that these legal frameworks are here to represent particular things. And we just have like a structural issue with individuals who, at least in the case, and again, I want to stress, I don't believe these are frivolous cases. I don't believe they're frivolous. I don't believe they're frivolous. I don't believe they're frivolous. In the case of a frivolous lawsuit, we think that the motivation in bringing that lawsuit, that is a predominating structural concern. And we don't want the law to be used for an end that we consider to be improper. And that, I think, it's especially present when the suit itself is frivolous, because if the suit itself is frivolous, the chances that what's actually being motivated are genuine concerns under the law are much, 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 much lower. So I think that you're repeating an intuition that I have and that we all share, which is that the law protects certain rights, vindicates certain interests. And to the extent that we are using the law to target things that we think are improper under those various frameworks, it raises a concern about abuse of process. I'm not saying from a legal perspective, and moral hazard. And the moral hazard here is especially concerning given the amount of leverage that a particularly rich person has in the context of the legal system. I think a lot of people can understand that the American legal system is one which is not equal in terms of who is trying to vindicate a claim. So I agree with your assessment there.
I have a question then. Beyond frivolity, maybe I didn't understand what you said.
Yeah.
Is your position that you shouldn't bring a lawsuit against someone, even if it's not frivolous, unless you are exclusively motivated by the desire to get a particular remedy about that case? Or is it ever appropriate to bring litigation because you have personal grievance with someone, not necessarily because, like, even if the case is valid, right? Like in this case, you say it's valid. Like, is that wrong to you? Is that an immoral use of the system to impose that kind of consequence, maybe for some other unrelated behavior, but you're using the system in that kind of way? Is that what you're saying your moral position is?
No. What I'm suggesting to you is merely, and I will get to what I think my standards are, is that there are situations in which, you know, it might not be a crime to file a frivolous lawsuit, though it's often unethical. That motivations behind bringing a lawsuits matter. And someone who is, for example, we'll take an easy case. Suppose that Ethan Klein were purely motivated, 100%, not any other percentage, 100% motivated with the specific purpose of silencing his critics by filing justified lawsuits.
Do you think he's trying to silence these people?
This is a hypothetical.
Okay.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Okay.
So the hypothetical, I'm not saying that this is necessarily what occurred. I'm giving you a stylized example just to prove the point that if it were the case, right? If it were the case that the only motivation, the pure motivation, this is the easiest case, that's why I'm making it easy for myself, were to silence critics because he felt he didn't like their criticism. He felt that the criticism was like untrue or something, or that he didn't like that they said it. And that's why he was bringing otherwise valid claims of copyright infringement, that you would think that that was bad.
If he was off base.
With respect to what? His opinion?
No. About his judgment about like what they said about him. Like, in my opinion, like you brought up the idea of like him using the legal system in this kind of way, but he is responding to a community of people that use the legal system against him in a way that I would argue is worse.
Yeah, but Hutch,
that was a response to that. So like,
hypothetical.
No, but I'm just saying, so in your hypothetical, it depends on like what was being said about him. Like,
right. So I'm trying to simplify it only because if you don't grant me this hypothetical, then the conversation's over, right? If you say, I don't give a shit that his motivation is to silence his critics, as long as there's a valid claim, I don't have a problem with it, then we don't need to get into the weeds at all.
No, but
right?
this is what I'm telling you is that like we can't evaluate this without getting into specifics about like what is being said about him in this hypothetical. So like, if he's using the legal system to silence critics because they didn't like his opinions about things, then yeah, I would say that that's an immoral use of the system. That would be overreach. That would be too far. But if they're spreading lies about him, about like abusing his children, for example, then that's a different conversation entirely, right?
We're just saying all else equal. And I would add like a kind of, there could be certain extenuating circumstances where even a desire to with the only desire is to silence one's critics. If there really is some overriding concern in terms of like the world's about to blow up, and if you don't bring the lawsuit, even though it's motivated by this thing, like I can think of situations in which I would grant it. But in general, that's why I'm using a stylized example, of which I mean like a simplified one that's not, we can't read minds in the real world, right? We don't know for certain all the time what people's intentions are. We have to rely on circumstantial evidence. The only reason I'm giving you a stylized hypothetical is for you to grant me the easy case, so we have a base to work with. Because if you don't grant me that, and if you say I don't really give a fuck, if your only motivation, if your pure motivation, all else equal, is to silence your critics, then then the conversation on ethics just ends there, right? Because then like all we have to talk about are like, I guess, the lies and the legal validity of the case, but the ethical stuff kind of falls by the wayside if you just don't grant me that example.
If Ethan was trying to use the system to generally just silence his critics, then that would be bad.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And you would also agree that all else equal, you can think of situations in which this is not the case. Lying about your intention regarding a lawsuit, that independent of whether filing the lawsuit itself is bad, in general, lying about why you're filing a lawsuit is itself bad, right?
I mean, lying in a vacuum is bad. There's a content element to this where like Ethan Klein is this public persona. And I think if you asked his audience, like his dedicated fans that like watch all of his shows, they will tell you that Ethan is like a very kind of like petty person and doesn't really make any effort to hide it. So there's him like, maliciously lying, actually like trying to do actual subterfuge or deception. And then there's like him like being coy, right? Like you understand that there's a difference in those kinds of like versions of dishonesty,
no
right?
Doubt. Yeah. No, what you're suggesting is a kind of like open facetiousness, or kind of like coy, wink, wink, nod, nod.
Yeah.
Where, literally it might be a lie, but everyone kind of understands what's going on. And so we don't really interpret it as a lie because it's kind of like a farce. Yeah. Right. So I can totally acknowledge that distinction for sure. No, that's not what I'm trying to get at. Yeah. What I'm merely suggesting is all else equal. If you wouldn't be like, it's good for Ethan to lie about his motivations. You would be like, it's bad to lie about it, right?
Yeah, just like now, in a very broad sense, but
yeah, there could be some extenuating circumstance where if he doesn't lie about his motivation, the world will blow up, or they'll take away his kids or something like that, and there can be some more. But in general, like we even think this of our politicians. We don't like it when our politicians lie. In general, we don't think that's good, and we think that there's a good norm in making sure that our public communicators are being frank and being upfront. And it's distasteful to us. We don't like it. All right. So this is just establishing, because what will happen, Hutch, and it's not really specific to you, is people will say things like, who the fuck cares if he lied? I guess everyone just kind of assumed that he lied. Whatever. It matters to people. Like these kinds of lies matter. And it matters when they do it, right? It matters when Ben Ampanada lies. It matters when Hassan lies. It matters when Denham's lies. Fair?
Yes, but I feel like we can't just skip over what I just said a moment ago, which is essentially just like not all lies are created equal. Like we should not.
I agree.
We should not evaluate all lies as the same. Just like it's just lie equal bad.
No doubt.
It's like in this context and many other contexts.
When they lie about like the fact that they, the thing that comes to mind right now is they lied about whether Costa Rica would accept Kilmar Berger Garcia as a third country removal. And even though they said, yes, we would love to accept him, you don't have to send him to fucking Liberia or Africa. Like there's no reason to do that. You can just send him here. And when Trump lies about that, I'm like, yes, this is a worse lie than a potential lie about a copyright lawsuit. Okay. All I'm just saying though, is not that there aren't lies, that one lie can be better or worse. If you lie about whether, your girlfriend looks fat in a dress, if you lie about like,
sure.
I'm not saying that all lies are created equal. What I'm just mainly saying is, in general, we would be against Ethan in the sense of we would condemn him lying about his intentions. We would say it's bad, right? Like misleading his audience about the reason behind a lawsuit. And I think that you would grant me that. Fair?
But what's the value? Like, yes, but like, what's the value of this hypothetical when we know the particulars? Why don't we just get to the particulars? You're trying to establish this framework. You're trying to take me on this journey.
It's important is because I don't want it to be the case that I get you to agree that there's a lie, and then you'd be like, but I don't care.
But hang on. I just said a moment ago, I don't think that, like, I think when Ethan talks. I think everybody knows what motivated Ethan in the first place. And I think it is both of these things, like the personal grievance that he had with these people for their contribution to his family's very real like suffering and harassment. And I think he also cares about malicious React content, as evidenced by his previous history of addressing these things.
I know your position is that there is no evidence he lied, or the evidence you don't believe that he necessarily lied, or that he did lie at all. I understand that that's your position, that he didn't in fact lie. What I'm trying to suggest to you is, if he did, you can understand why someone would condemn it.
But what do you think he lied about, though? Why don't we get to that? What do you think he lied about?
Okay, let's get right to it. I think he lied that his motivation for the lawsuit was to protect the React community. That's number one. That's the first lie. So I've identified a lie. And you can confront me and say he never actually said that. I think that would be an absurd thing to say. Number two lie. He lied when he said that Casey Tron's apology was sincere. I think that those, at a bare minimum, are two significant lies that we should, if true, and I think you should grant me it, if it's true he lied about those two things, or either of those two things, you would condemn it. Fair?
I think not necessarily, no, because I think I think I agree with you that he put a little mustard on the idea that Casey Tron was being sincere. I think he was I think it was a kind of gloating for him. I think it was a kind of feigned being like magnanimous.
Oh, you don't think he was being sincere when he told his audience not to attack Casey Tron, and that this was a sincere apology?
No. I think he was being sincere there. I think he was trying to
presumably then.
I think he was trying to mitigate, like, yeah, or maybe he was, honestly, maybe he was feeling magnanimous in the moment. But when you watched, I watched the opening of that stream, and the vibes were pretty clear. Like, he opened the stream. I mean, that was a fucking victory lap. Like, he was gloating. Like, he was gloating throughout the whole stream. And then I think he acted.
But do you think that in the moments when he said, Casey Tron's being sincere, don't attack Casey Tron, we understand her plight, we understand what's going on, do you think that was part of the kind of like wink, wink gloating, or you think that he was being sincere when he was trying to tell his audience not to go after her? And if he wasn't being sincere, you got another problem there, right? Because then he's winking and saying to his audience, you should continue to do this.
No. I think he was being sincere. Like, you can, both things can be true. Both things, like, he can be gloating, and at the same time he can, like, have a better angel in himself in the moment to dissuade like future harassment.
But I recognize that there's a difference in terms of whether something is a lie. If there's a kind of general understanding that this is some kind of farce or display where you're not expected to believe it. But you don't think that he was trying to do that with respect to his statements about, guys, Casey Tron, I believe this is a very sincere apology, very nice apology. Don't go after her. You think when he did that,
I think
that wasn't that, right? That wasn't him being insincere. He was being sincere, wasn't he?
No, I think that was him trying to be responsible in terms of like moderating his community.
So was he being sincere?
Maybe, probably. I don't know. I think, like, listen, I don't know Ethan that well, to be honest with you. I don't really know, like, I can't speak to his character, but I have seen him in the past demonstrate sympathy for people, even people that he didn't like. So for all I know, in that moment, like, he can, but like I said, both of the things can be happening at the same time. So he can feel a sense of satisfaction that he got, like justice was served. Like, there were consequences for bad behavior that negatively impacted him, his wife, his family. And at the same time, he can also have a part of him that wanted to be like responsible with his moderating of his community in that moment to prevent from the war or whatever from blowing up even further. Like, he can be motivated by multiple things at the same time.
So when you say he can be motivated by things, it's very important, right? And I'm not trying to just be like super anal about how we use the words, but it really matters. Like, when we say can, like, I will always grant that it can be the case if what you mean by can is it doesn't entail a logical contradiction, right? So if you ask me, isn't it possible that Ethan could have two motives? I'm going to say, yes, it is possible, by which I mean it is not entailing a logical contradiction. But so you just have to be very, very careful when you say that, because I'm going to, every time you say that, going to say, if by possible, do you mean logically possible? If by can, do you mean it entails
It is logically possible. I'll say it that way. It is logically possible to be to gloat and show sympathy for your, conquered foe at the same time.
What I'm telling you is it's logically possible for you to be able to jump to the moon right now.
No,
all we mean by logical possible.
What? No, it's not. What are you talking about? How is that logically possible?
Okay. Because the definition of logical possibility, the modality of possibility we're talking about there, is specifically about whether or not there's a contradiction entailed by it. So I would be, when I say something like,
I feel like I would be contradicting the laws of physics by
right. So that's like a different, like, if you take as given the laws of physics, then you can establish a contradiction in that the laws of physics. Okay,
I do.
I know, but then you're introducing some these kind of rules of physics and these external rules that aren't necessitated by the situation itself. And so that's why it matters to talk about this, because what people will hear when you say, isn't it possible that Ethan Klein has two motives? And I answer yes to that is, oh, well, he just gave the game away, because he's saying that it's possible to have two motives.
No, I'm giving you my best answer. But I'm in the absence of certainty, because I have not personally reached out to Ethan and asked him, like, what motivated you in that moment. So I don't know, but like,
have you reached out to Trump and asked him the motivations about his malicious acts? Wait, and by the way, when I do this comparison, I'm not saying Ethan is the same as Trump, guys.
Are you suggesting that I should have?
I want to make sure. I want to inoculate myself against that. When I made the comparison to Trump, I wasn't saying Ethan is like Trump. It's a comparison.
But it's like you're demanding that I have certainty, and I don't. I'm giving you my vibe, my best guess from my observation.
That's not. I'm not asking you to say 100%.
Yeah, but you are, though, because I say it's possible, and you're like, well, then like you don't have you have an issue with me saying it's possible.
No, because I can't prove to you right now that you're not a brain in a vat, that Ethan doesn't actually exist, that you're just a figment of my imagination. Like, there's so much that I cannot prove 100%, right? Like, I can't prove that 100% that we live on a sphere. By 100%, we mean to an epistemic certainty. So understand what I'm saying here is we're stepping way back to talk about like possibility in the abstract. And
no,
the only
you
reason
are.
I'm doing this,
you're debate broing me right now.
No, like it's not. It's really not an attempt to debate, bro. Because what will happen is you'll ask, "Isn't it possible that Ethan has two motivations?" And if I say no, I sound ridiculous, because of course people can have mixed motives, right? Of course,
you don't think that. Possible. Why don't we skip to that? You don't think that. You don't think that. What do you think? What do you think?
Right. So I just, this is really important. I want to clarify, when I say he doesn't have mixed motive, I'm not saying it's impossible for a person to have mixed motive. I'm saying the evidence that we have is, I think, strong that this motivation, the particular motivation that I'm citing, isn't what's actually motivating. But before we get into that, because I do want to get into that, I just want to like get an agreement. If he did lie about Casey-tron's apology and whether it was sincere, are you suggesting that you would say that that was good to do?
If the purpose of the lie was to prevent harassment, for example, would you say that that would be bad?
I think that that if you felt that an apology on anti-Semitism, on whether or not it was right to invoke Asmongold's mother, whether or not you're apologizing to your very employees, that you are eliciting a known insincere apology, why, to protect an insincere person, would you make that? If you were a principled person, I would say, yeah, I don't want you to lie to your audience about whether the apology is sincere based on your feeling that you have to like protect someone who's being insincere. Doesn't that make sense?
But if again, you're not indulging my hypothetical. Would it be wrong to lie if you're, as a creator, if your intention is to dissuade your audience from like brigading Casey-tron streams and replies?
At some level of danger to Casey-tron's health and security, then yes, I think that it's okay to lie. If otherwise she would get killed or assaulted or attacked or some shit like that.
Harassed.
And it's like,
or harassed and brigaded.
No, not that. I do not think at the scale we're talking about here, which is public criticism. All right. I also love this kind of like deflation of the word harassment. That means anytime you get like a bunch of comments, negative comments and shit, and negative attention, by that logic, like I'm harassed constantly all the time by everybody.
I'm sure you are.
Harassment, like when I understand harassment to be, and it's not just like it is a specific wrongful act that puts you in like fear for your privacy or a fear of like that you're about to be in physical harm or something like that, or someone's going to stalk you, shit like that. Not mere criticism because you did a bad thing. Like it's not harassment that we say Trump is a piece of shit or Hexit needs to go to jail, or we say that all like I understand these are public figures, but same thing.
They're not, not the same thing at all, bro.
On Hassan Piker, right? Like when Hassan Piker is lying about Israel or Gaza or whatever that you think he's lying about, you wouldn't be like, okay, criticizing that as harassment, right? If he's doing misconduct, if he's being insincere and you criticize it, that's not harassment. Fair?
Just criticism is not harassment, but if it's organized brigading, if it's organized brigading, if you're
by which you mean what? Like that?
What do you mean? You don't know the term? You know what brigading means? Come on, like if
brigading meaning like sending your people over to their servers or the
yeah, brigading doesn't even necessarily need to be like orchestrated by the creator. It could be something that just arises.
I don't think that. Yes, to answer your question, no. I don't think that the fear of brigading is enough to justify lying to your audience.
I don't know. I think that's
about an insincere apology.
But you're motivated. But you're motivated by a desire to like prevent harm or limit harm. How could that be immoral? Because you're lying.
First of all, I think that his motivation is to try to claim it's sincere for purposes of his further, to justify his position in the lawsuit and to justify the negative statements made about Hassan Piker. So I don't even buy, or at this point, I don't have a good inference that he's really motivated to, protect Casey Tron's well-being. And part of that is because of the way he talks about Casey Tron's financial situation, which I find reprehensible. But we can get into that in a second.
He can be petty.
But
he can be petty.
I just want to say that if it were the case that Casey Tron is being insincere in her apology, and Ethan Klein knows her to be insincere, you would say that it's okay for Ethan to lie about that.
I don't think it's necessarily bad.
But given the facts that we have here, if under current understandings of the fact, right, your own interpretation of the facts as you know it, if you found out and Ethan said to you, you know what, Hutch, I was lying, I don't think it's sincere, what would you say to that?
Don't care.
You don't care about the
no.
See, this is why so I'm not going to spend a lot of time.
I don't care. I don't think it's necessarily bad. I think he was even if I indulged your version of it. Let's say he's just all it is just him doing a backhanded like victory lap. I don't care.
Okay, so that's why I lead with this stuff. If you don't care about whether or not he lied about her sincerity or insincerity on the apology, then I'm not going to spend a bunch of time. Even if I could establish that she lied, which actually I will ask you about, that you would think if you're not going to condemn it, right? I'm not going to spend a bunch of time wasting why you should, right? Like you're saying basically it's okay for him to lie about the sincerity of the apology, even if it's not true. For him to tell his audience it is true.
If you think that I have some kind of moral obligation to condemn him for lying in that spot in this hypothetical, you would have to convince me that the consequences that Casey Tron experienced were not commensurate with the way that she contributed to what happened with Ethan and Hila and all that. Like you would have to say, because earlier in the conversation you said that you didn't think it was necessarily immoral to bring litigation against someone but be motivated by some other kind of grievance. You said that wasn't necessarily immoral, right?
Yeah, so I think that there could be motivations that aren't necessarily that it doesn't necessarily make it immoral. That's correct. I was giving some stylized examples, but we'll get into the facts about the lawsuit. But I just want to resolve this issue of lying. No,
but then this conversation needs to be about like, do you think that Ethan bringing litigation was too far of a response to how Casey Tron and Brogan and Denham's and that whole community contributed to the CPS call and the harassment that Ethan and Hila got.
Right. So, I mean, the case, you're basically asking me, do you think the lawsuits are justified? That's what you're asking me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I do want to get into that, but I just want to deal with lying.
Could it be justified, is that an appropriate...
By could, you mean could I see some possible world that doesn't entail a contradiction in which it could be justified? The answer is yes, but again, that's...
But do you think that? No, but do you think that?
No, I don't think it's... I think under the circumstances, given the nature of the lies and what's actually motivating it, I do not think that they're justified.
I mean, how do you feel about how do you feel about the collective communities that they had piling on about the CPS stuff? Like, how do you feel about that? And then the lack of moderation. Right, how do you feel about that?
Question. Like,
but that's a really important question. Like, how do you feel about that?
So depending on the conduct, I of course condemn it. If what they're doing is advocating for or celebrating, for example, calling CPS on those facts, I condemn that. If they're, for example, let's say it's something weird like refusing to condemn the death of a political, the assassination or something, I would condemn that.
No, let's just talk about what happened.
Yeah,
let's just talk about what happened. Like they made a mockery of it.
I can think of a bunch of situations where failure to moderate is something that I would condemn.
No, but I'm talking about this specific thing. I just want your thoughts on this specific thing. Like, do you not think that do you not think that action that they did, that the way that they participated in the whole CPS thing?
What did they do?
I already laid it out for you. We talked about that before. They enabled it. They enabled it. They were wildly irresponsible at best. And they were maliciously egging it on at worst. And in the case of Denham's, I think
they're culpable. You think that they're culpable for what happened?
I think they're all like jointly culpable. Yeah, they all have a part to play in that. Yeah, when you don't take any meaningful action to moderate your community, when you can see plain as day what's going on in your chat, and we're making jokes about it after the fact. Like, why are you joking about it after the fact? Like that.
Well, presumably, if you're joking about it after the fact and only after the fact, how do we know that there's a causal connection at all between what occurred and the community? I can imagine a bunch of people laughing at shit that they had no. So I'll give you an example, right? There are some Democrats who celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk. Agreed? Yes or no?
Yes. Like randos on Twitter. Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Are those people culpable for Charlie Kirk's death?
No, but that's not the same thing at all. Wait, hang on a second.
It's a comparison.
No,
it's an analogy.
No, but this would only be analogous if they were all in message boards where they were talking about potentially unaliving Charlie Kirk. That would be analogous.
So what you need to show, don't you, is a causal relationship between their conduct incriminatory act and the act itself, don't you?
The CPS call happened shortly after Denham's did her stream where she platformed a bad empanada video where he was making the case that CPS should be called. And she made no meaningful, she like maybe she made some, but like she did not go nearly far enough in terms of moderating her. If I was her, first of all, why is she watching that video? Why is she platforming bad empanada? Why is she watching a video with this guy who is tacitly encouraging his audience to call CPS? Do you agree that that's wildly irresponsible as a creator?
To watch a bad empanada video?
Yeah, to watch a bad, not in a vacuum, to watch a bad empanada video of him making the case for why the viewer should maybe call CPS.
Is it a good thing to do?
Is it irresponsible is what I said.
Should she do it? I think the answer is no. I don't think she should do it.
Why?
But that's not.
Why though?
But that doesn't. Hang on, because I think
but the why matters. The why matters.
Yes,
why?
I'm about to wait. I'm answering that. Did you hear me answering that? I said.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So, I don't think it's good because if you are, watching a video in which these kinds of bad things are being expressed, all else equal, without any pushback, potentially that could encourage a risk or something of something occurring.
Yes.
But hang on a second.
What thing?
But hang on 1 second. Do you have evidence that Denham's knew what was in the video before she watched it? Yes or no?
I don't know off the top of my head, but she kept watching it. That's not the point. She kept watching it. She could have turned it off the second he brought that up and said, whoa, this is way too far. I don't co-sign this.
The answer is no. You don't have any evidence that she knew the contents of the video.
Why would you skip over? No, she continued to watch it, dude. She indulged the logic.
I just want to do it one step at a time. So you don't have any evidence, correct, that she knew what was in the video?
I think you're trying to worm out of the logical conclusion that you just jumped to. I think you're trying to worm out of the logical conclusion that you just jumped to, which is that if the reason why it's irresponsible for someone to do that in her position is because, as you said, the risk goes way up that somebody in her community might act on that.
But here's the thing.
So how is she not culpable?
Hey. So it's an attenuated risk. It's an attenuated risk that is not at all sufficient for culpability. Not even 1%, not even close to 1%, Hutch. The mere acting and watching of a video that encourages bad stuff, now you are culpable for things that might result from watching
culpable.
a video.
They're all partly culpable. All of them are. Yes.
That you would apply this standard to any other commentator who watches something.
Of course I do.
Bro.
No.
No.
I have a consistent. Ask my chat if I moderate. Ask my chat if I moderate. I take steps all the time. I tell my chat explicitly all the time, don't brigade. I do all, like, there's certain red lines that I understand that me as a creator, as someone with the following, as someone who could potentially influence someone, I do think that I have a responsibility to use that influence responsibly.
Culpable. It doesn't make you culpable.
It doesn't make you 100% culpable, but you are partly culpable. Yes. And at the very least,
here's a question for you, Hutch. If you're saying that Charlie Kirk has blood on his hands, this is before he's killed. Charlie Kirk is a fascist. Charlie Kirk is trying to overturn the democracy of our country. He's instituting these horrible things. And
you're doing the Republican thing now. That's what you're doing. You're doing the thing.
Why do you think I'm bringing up the Republican talking point? Why do you think I'm bringing that up, Hutch?
Because there's a difference. Their observations is not the same as this at all.
Hutch,
it's a bad faith. It's a bad faith situation.
So I'm not gonna be deterred from bringing up this example. The question stands. The question is as follows: if you, as a creator, are platforming a video, you're watching a video in which someone says Charlie Kirk has blood on his hands, he's allowing and encouraging criminal actions from the administration, and honestly, I think that he's a fascist, and there should be no moral consideration for Charlie Kirk whatsoever.
Hold on.
I'm going to finish the question, Hutch.
I have a video. I just want you to watch a video. I just want you to watch a video.
No. You can, I'm asking something. I will definitely watch your video after I get an answer and then we address it.
Okay.
I will definitely, don't worry about it, right? So if it's the case that you have someone who's watching a video of someone else saying Charlie Kirk has blood on his hands, he should have no moral consideration, and he kind of doesn't do anything, he just kind of watches it. Ends up Charlie Kirk gets assassinated. Someone comes up to you, Hutch, and said, you are culpable. You watched this insane video in which he says no moral consideration should be given to Charlie Kirk. You don't actually believe it, and you didn't do any pushback in that moment.
Did the person in the video?
Let me finish the question. Would that person who watched that video without any pushback on the notion that Charlie Kirk deserves no moral consideration, he didn't push back there, he let that stand, would that person be culpable for the assassination of Charlie Kirk, yes or no?
Did the video that was watched, I need to ask you about the video that this hypothetical video. In the hypothetical video that I watched, did the creator of that video suggest that someone should explicitly suggest that someone should unalive Charlie Kirk?
No. He says he deserves no moral consideration. Whatever happens to him is justified.
That's too abstract. Then no, there's no culpability there. This is not abstract though. In the case of denims, it's not abstract.
Hang on a second. Don't you agree that there's a risk that someone could get the wrong impression? Isn't there?
That standard is way too high.
Hang on a second.
You agree with me that there's a spectrum. You agree with me that there's a spectrum, right?
What I'm trying to prove is, what I'm trying to demonstrate to you is the mere fact that there's an increased risk does not imply that there is culpability. The volitional acts of others cut off the causal chain such that we imply culpability, even if it's the case that you have dangerous rhetoric, such that it's possible there's a risk. You agree, don't you, by the way, that Destiny, I think he's been based on a lot of his assessments of the double standard and hypocrisy of MAGA. Would you deny that there is a risk that him saying and refusing to condemn at times, sometimes he does condemn it, but at times refusing to condemn carries risk of the assassination? Does it carry risk?
You kind of lost me there.
Yes, of course. So when Destiny refuses to condemn the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I am telling you that he's inconsistent on it. Sometimes he condemns it, but there are moments.
I've talked all the time about how I think his rhetoric around that stuff is way too irresponsible.
All of a sudden, there's a
how's this inconsistent?
All of a sudden, there's a Republican who's killed, and they even cite, Destiny because, no moral consideration, there needs to be equality, whatever. That would be, you would not say Destiny's culpable there, would you?
You are fucking debate perverting me right now.
Dude,
we're so far in the weeds about this. I just want you to watch a video. I just want you to watch a video. We don't need to do the hypotheticals, please.
No, we actually do, because this shows that there's a principle that we're not going to impose.
But you're not proposing something that is analogous, dude. These are not analogous. It's not like, if this then that.
You need to explain the disanalogy then, because what I provided to you, you said,
then
right?
let me ask you a question. You've asked me like 5 questions, bro. Let me ask you a question. Would you, if you were watching a video and then the creator of the video, in the video that you're watching, suggested that someone should unalive Tim Pool, would you continue to watch the video?
I would condemn that. I'm just telling. That's why. And I would say,
would you continue to watch the video?
Yeah, I might continue to watch the video. I watch unhinged people say unhinged things all the time. Now, I would probably...
You would turn that shit off. Come on, bro. You would turn it off. There's TOS considerations.
Are you shitting me?
You don't think you would turn that off?
If I saw a video in which someone is making a threat of violence, you think I would automatically turn the video off?
If somebody made a specific call to action, you would be banned in like a second if you didn't turn it off, right?
Wait, the mere listening to it?
Yes, you can't.
I've never heard of that TOS.
Okay. You've never heard you've never heard of TOS for a call to action, to like a specific call to action to hurt someone or harm someone?
If an individual is endorsing it, but just merely watching the video?
Yes, every platform that you're on, basically. If you're watching a video that says someone should really go unalive Tim Pool and you didn't stop watching it,
I condemn that. Wait, hang on.
No. You would be banned if you didn't turn that off, right?
Wait, I'm not convinced of that. If I've watched,
hang on, give me 1 second.
They haven't enforced.
Give me 1 second.
Okay. Chat, I don't know. Have you guys ever heard of that? Like, I've watched unhinged people like say crazy things. Well, like, we consider and we've analyzed, for example, Trump's incitement theories under both legal, and we've watched the videos and stuff. We watched 6 videos where
you got me shouting, so I need some fucking water.
Oh, no worries.
If you were watching a video where somebody said, you know what, I really fucking, Tim Pool is just the worst, and you know, somebody definitely needs to go and unalive him, right? You would continue to watch that?
Yeah, if I was analyzing it and saying this is a true threat, this is an example of a true threat. I'll give you another example, right?
But you said you would specifically condemn it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the context. Like if
why?
I think because I do think that potentially there could be, if I just let it play and don't specifically address it, I think that there could be action by Twitch. But again, just because there's action by Twitch or there's a risk for my channel doesn't mean that I'm accepting culpability if something bad happens. I just want to be clear about the distinction there. And second, I do think that there's a moral responsibility to condemn these acts of violence, or even acts, for example, of deception or whatever. And I think that there's a potential risk, and you should minimize risk where possible. Here's the difference, right? Mitigation of risk and an obligation to avoid risk doesn't equal culpability if something bad ends up happening after the fact. And this is easily, you can understand that if you just apply any of the comparisons that I've talked about, that no one in the context that I provided, that you're examining someone saying some unhinged shit about Charlie Kirk, and then all of a sudden, oops, someone kills him. No one could ever come to a lib creator and you would defend, you would say, this is insane. You know, he was watching a video of someone else doing it. No, he wasn't doing it.
What if I could show you a video of Denims herself saying that somebody should call CPS on Ethan?
Go for it. I would say that's independently bad. Yeah.
Okay. Apparently there's a video.
All right, show us.
It's on my stream. Just pull up my stream.
Can you share it on Discord?
Yes. Hold on.
You acting like I have like a problem condemning Denims or Hassan.
We're getting into all these hypotheticals, though. Like, you know what I mean? I think they're culpable, and I think
principles. Hutch, why do you think I'm doing this? I'm doing this because I don't want you. I love you. I love you, my boy.
No, you're doing this because
out and be like, there's no fucking comparison here.
You're doing this to avoid the possibility that these creators did something that was extremely harmful.
No. If they advocated for CPS, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to condemn that.
Okay, well,
even by the way, just let you know.
Well, let me watch the clip. Let me just watch the clip. Hold on, I'm pressing play. I'm pressing play.
No, but I'm telling you in advance. I don't even need to see the clip. I will see the clip.
I want to see the clip.
If they laugh about it after the fact, I'll condemn that too. Guess what? It doesn't resolve the issue.
But you don't okay, hold on. Let me watch the clip. I'm done talking for a second. Hold on.
Shit in their house. And then Denims hosts this and see what she says. And then now we wonder why people are calling Child Protective Services.
But they called it before I even did this stream. he lets his dogs shit all over his mansion, and he just leaves the shit on the floor, something that is probably related to the fact that his former housekeeper is suing him for a number of different reasons. So I would assume he doesn't actually have a housekeeper anymore, or perhaps he lost his extra housekeeper. So now the house is just like covered in dog shit. And he has kids, and his kids like crawl into the dog shit, and God forbid, I don't know what they do with it. I don't know if they eat it or if it's just from like contact with it with their hands or something, but they contracted a parasite that I had previously never heard of in my life called Giardia from the dog shit that is all over his house.
Oh, it was Denim's chat that was saying called CPS.
I hope you're not going to
hold on. How is it that like
liability for what
maybe
your chat
once a
says?
week?
That's insane. And you're never going to defend that standard.
You're not. You don't think. Hang on. If your chat was spamming,
are you shitting me?
Hang on. If your chat was spamming, call the cops on Rob Knorr. You wouldn't tell them to not call the cops? You wouldn't step in?
That's not what I said. Wait. That is not what I said.
Do you have a responsibility?
Hutch. I didn't say that I wouldn't. Hutch. Yes.
As a creator.
Yes, that doesn't mean you're culpable. Yes, that doesn't mean you're culpable. Do you understand the difference
there? Of course it does.
Just
what do you mean?
You have a self-stand. No, it fucking doesn't. If someone ends up, so you're saying if I failed to do my due diligence in like saying and giving an affirmative thing, hey guys, I don't agree with this, and you shouldn't call the cops on Rob Knorr. If I don't do that, and if I just let it play out, either because I don't see it or because I'm negligent, because I'm just fucking twiddling my thumbs.
No.
Culpability for
no. That's not what I said, though. Let me give you a hypothetical. You love hypotheticals. Let me give you a hypothetical. Okay?
Yeah, I do love it. Yeah.
Let's say all of us on Live and Learn. Okay, you, me, Soy Pill, and IRI. We all watch the same video independently with our own viewers. Okay, and in that video. Somebody makes a claim and then like all of our chats are like spamming, you know, like somebody needs to call the cops on Rob Knorr. Okay. Yep. And then somebody calls and we don't do anything. We don't police it at all. And then somebody calls the cops on Rob Knorr. Are none of us culpable or are all of us culpable? None of us are culpable?
No, the culpable party is the parties that encouraged it. Explicitly with their intention, their active intention to do so, and those who did it. That's what's
okay.
That
I mean, we just have like a major philosophical difference between responsible content creation because.
I want you to apply this standard, the standard that you're just setting out. Anytime that because there have been left-wing acts of violence, and there are chats that will talk about this kind of shit, saying, you know. These people should. These people exist. These people.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And you would never say, well, because you failed to moderate your unhinged chat, as opposed to saying, okay, you have a responsibility to upkeep it. I would agree with that, no doubt.
I think like
that's insane. That's strict liability for what your fucking chat does.
Maybe we're getting hung up on the term, but I think like at minimum you could say that. You, through your inaction and through your tacit endorsement, really, of what Bad Empanada was saying in that video, and then you like ignoring your chat, like multiple people in your chat, and you have mods, like she looks at her chat constantly. She chose to not like do anything about those comments in that moment. Like at that point, you have contributed to.
Wait a second. I'm not talking about legal culpability. I am talking about ethical culpability.
Yes, of course you're ethically.
Okay. No, I'm seeing people in the chat, so I'm only talking about ethical culpability. But go ahead.
This is a major philosophical difference between you and me. I think if you are a creator and you're seeing specific calls to action, especially something as serious as government intervention on somebody that you don't like. You have a responsibility to step in at that point and say, guys, this is way too far. Right? Excuse me?
Otherwise, you're culpable?
Otherwise, you have contributed to like that event happening in some small way, or you could, at the very least, potentially have done it. The reality is, we can't know who made that call. Was it someone from Hassan's audience? Was it someone from her audience? Was it someone from Casey Tron's audience? We don't know. But in a general sense,
your burden to show that they are culpable. You just because it's hard to find evidence of the particular thing that shows culpability doesn't relieve you of your responsibility to show it.
When I say culpable, do you hear like 100% responsible?
No, I would hear morally culpable for the thing occurring. That's what I understand it to be.
There's a shared culpability is my point. And I think you're using that like uncertainty about where the call came from as a means to just like deflect all responsibility. Like you're saying that they had no ethical obligation to moderate their own chat as they're like making suggestions to call CPS, which is wild to me.
What you're culpable for is what you did wrong. What you did wrong was failure to moderate appropriately your chat. What you're not culpable for is actually fucking calling CPS.
If you were in Ethan's shoes, just try to imagine, okay?
No, that's not. No, so I can totally grant that if I accept all of Ethan's priors, if I take his point of view, we're not talking about from his lights. Does he think it's justified? He's doing it.
No, but I'm asking you to just imagine, like,
yeah,
who would you have blamed? Do you think you could understand blaming like the whole pool of creators that were all dogpiling and encouraging it and joking about it, laughing about it, even
blaming
encouraging
them for
it?
What?
Blaming them for the fucking for CPS showing up at your house.
No, that's unhinged.
That's unhinged. No, you would.
Republicans say. So I want to hear you say it then. So I'm going to give you.
You'd be like, well, example. We can never know, so I can't blame any of them. You would not do that, bro.
If your community actively encourages doxing and you fail to moderate that doxing, and then doxing in fact occurs, is the streamer culpable for doxing?
I'll tell you what how I would feel. I'm telling you exactly. Yeah. I'm telling you exactly. Yeah. Imagine me, right? And I found out that somebody in my community doxed someone. And there was a thing that maybe we missed, like I was looking away from chat or something like that. I would feel responsible.
I'm not going to be distracted. I'm giving you an example.
I'm giving you an answer.
So no, you didn't answer that question. You said what you would do, that you would feel responsible if some other shit happened, even when you were negligent. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a situation in which the community doxes, you're aware of it, and you don't moderate it. Intentionally, you don't moderate. You see it's there, and you don't moderate it.
Mm-hmm.
Is the streamer culpable for the doxing?
I think they are partly responsible. Yes.
Okay, so it's a standard you would apply that the mere non-moderation decisions,
yes,
as to your community, gives you culpability for the attacks, however attenuated, that might occur because you fail to moderate your community, even though those
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
and those wrong. Okay,
I can't believe that. I'm a bit incredulous right now because you seem to be.
Well, in what sense?
You seem to be totally closed off to the possibility that a streamer has any reasonable like expectation of being responsible in their moderation.
What's the point of moderation? Hutch, I literally said the opposite. So I want to be clear.
What's the point of moderation?
First, I'm going to establish that what you just represented is literally the opposite of what I said. So you heard me, didn't you, when I said that there is a responsibility to moderate? You heard that?
But did you hear that? What's the point of the?
So I'm asking you if you heard.
I'm trying to make sense of what you're saying because what you're saying is.
You heard it when I said.
Hang on, what you're saying is contradictory to me. Because otherwise, well, what is the point of moderation then?
So I just want to make sure.
Can you answer that question?
I will.
Yes, I heard you. Yes, I heard you. Okay. What's the point of moderation?
There's self-standing obligations to moderate to reduce risk that a streamer I think has. There's a low cost of compliance and where there are obvious potential benefits to a low cost compliance incident. The fact that you have a self-standing obligation to mitigate risk. I'm going to repeat it and make sure you hear it. So I'm going to say it twice. That you violated your duty to moderate does not mean you are culpable for actions that underlie it.
If you're not culpable,
oh my God. I mean, so you understand that there are two obligations, right?
What you're saying makes no sense because if you're saying you're there to mitigate risk, but you're not culpable if something happens, well, then what the fuck are you?
What's the contradiction?
What risk?
What's the contradiction?
What risk are you mitigating?
Yeah. So the risk that you're mitigating does pertain potentially to later on events, but that doesn't mean.
What does that mean, dude? Come on, don't say events. Okay. Risk of what?
Of either bad conduct, malicious conduct, whatever is responsible, whatever's down the line.
By who?
Absolutely. So I just want to make sure that you understand the distinction here. Do you understand a distinction between a duty to mitigate risk, that is by properly moderating, and the culpable actions of intentional people who are doing the thing? And the reason I'm asking this of you is if you don't understand that difference, I think that there's like a huge issue in communication here, because just because you fail to moderate and fail to optimally minimize risk doesn't mean that you're responsible for the volitional malicious conduct of other people.
You're not obviously. Listen, whoever called CPS, that was their decision. Ultimately, they're responsible for their actions. But you seem to be like aloof to the idea that people with tremendous levels of influence, especially when we're talking about that particular shared community.
I'm not going to get distracted.
I'm not trying to distract you. You're acting aloof to the idea that these people could potentially influence their own audience through action or inaction to do something like that. So is Denham's 100% responsible for what happened? No, but she's partly culpable, in my opinion, because she contributed to that culture and that community and that rhetoric that led to ultimately the call happening in the first place. I can't give you like, is she this percentage to blame or that percentage? But there is a general shared culpability.
So does Denham's have significant culpability for the CPS call that she did not place? That there's no evidence that I've seen her encourage.
I never said that.
Wait. I'm just asking you the question, Hutch. Do you think that there is significant culpability by Denham's?
Define significant. Are we talking percentages here?
That is a primitive, and I will, but I will say I'll put a percentage on it. 5% significant.
Maybe, yeah.
So you think that Denham's is 5% responsible?
I don't know. I have no way to give you up. Maybe, sure, yeah.
That is, and what percentage is Casey-tron responsible?
2%. I don't. Who cares? It doesn't matter.
So you agree? At a bare minimum, Casey-tron, as I understand it, insignificant responsibility. Fair?
No, you're missing the point. There's a shared culpability, friend.
No, but so first of all, I don't even accept that we would apply the culpable standard to the actual act itself. We would apply a culpability to the failure to moderate and uphold the norm of moderating, but it wouldn't extend to the actual act itself. But even assuming that we would, the notion that you would put 5 or greater percentage on a call that you have no evidence that she encouraged, no evidence that she knew about it. The only thing you have is chat comments that you can't prove she read, that have been provided in a video to you.
But that's risky, right?
All you have, and you're willing to say.
But that's risky, right? You said that was risky, right?
Hang on a second. So if she knew about it, potentially.
Do you think it's 0%?
I am trying. Oh my God, this is crazy. Wait, so I just
you say my 5% is dumb.
I'm gonna lay out the case.
Do you think it's 0%?
For me, it's 0%. 0% culpability for the.
Wait, you just said a minute ago that if you don't moderate, there's a risk that someone in your audience could do something, right?
Correct. That doesn't mean that you're.
How could it be 0% then?
It's not. They're not the same. Wrong.
Oh, I'm being told to finish the clip. Hold on. There's more to the clip.
Okay, go for it.
Giarda.
We already have Mold Mondays. Now we have Shit Saturdays.
Also, this is not a joking matter, by the way. It can be very severe and deadly to small children. I mean, much like many other illnesses, it's very, very, very dangerous when infants get the same sicknesses that adults get. There are lots of things that you can get as an adult. You're totally fine. You'll be A-okay. No problem. A child, a small infant that has no immune system, shouldn't be catching.
So I don't know if you're watching the same thing, but she's telling her audience that, she's strongly implying that Ethan's children might die.
Anything.
No wonder his house is covered in dog shit, and his neglected children raised by nannies
just click
have
to a minute
contracted
into the video.
parasites previously unknown to science from the feces.
I don't see any video.
I put it in the Discord.
Oh, okay, one second.
I wonder why he skipped over all of this, because everything that he said, everything that I said in this story, which by the way was apparently compiled by his crew, playing.
No wonder this motherfucker is always sick. Yeah. It all makes sense now. It makes sense why he doesn't care about Palestinian children when he is neglecting his own. How is this happening? How?
Watch that clip and try to tell me she's 0%, bro. There's no way.
I fail to see how this is encouraging someone to call CPS.
I didn't say that it encourages someone to call CPS. You don't have to. You don't have to encourage.
Help me out here.
Do you have to encourage someone to call CPS to contribute to the risk of someone calling it?
No.
Okay.
But what I'm trying to suss out for you is the mere, potential increase of risk. And I agree. I mean, like the mere fact that she's reporting, like even viewing the video at all, right? Even in a critical lens, might increase the risk of someone calling CPS, right? Even if you were examining a video just to criticize it, right? Just to tear it apart. If you're a big enough streamer, that might contribute to a risk on net that you don't know everyone who follows you fucking watch it. So what I'm saying is there's a self-standing obligation to moderate 100%, but that doesn't co-extend to substantive. And here I'm not talking about legal, ethical culpability that I'm going to impose, some kind of ethical breach with respect to the substantive act that we're talking about. And the notion, and I'm going to lay it out here because I watched the whole clip, that you're going to give Denims, as you sit here, 5% or greater.
You came up with that number.
You bought it, right? So the fact that I said it, you didn't have to adopt that. You didn't have to say, yes, I agree more than 5%. You didn't have to say, you asked me, what do you consider significant? I gave you a number, 5%, and you said, yes. No one put a gun to your head, Hutch, that you had to accept that number. So for you, it's chicken shit right now.
No, but you're trying to box me in. I'm not thinking about these things in like percentage points, my friend. I'm thinking about I'm at a much more top level view of things. I'm not gonna tell you 2% for Casey, 5% for this. I mean, my brain is not working. Your lawyer brain is going there, and I'm not with you on that.
So first of all, when I say significance, the 5% significance threshold, that's more of like a statistical. If anything, it's not my lawyer background. It's like my, I don't know, econ statistics background from undergrad. That I know that there's a 5% significance level, 1%, and so here I'm giving 5%, but I wouldn't even give 1%. So I'm being more generous and saying, okay, significant in this range.
I think
I guess I'm being less generous with 5%, but I just want to be clear. So I'm going to lay it out. So you got to let me lay it out. All right.
Okay. All right.
Because you did adopt it. Unless you want to come back and say I take back 5%. Are you going to say that?
I'm going to stick with it. I'm sticking with the 5%. Okay. In fact, I'm saying it's specifically 5%. That's what I think.
Okay. The fact that you would say that Denims deserves 5% culpability, not for failure to moderate and her norms with respect to her moderation responsibilities and her norm to minimize risk. Hold on. My God.
Wait. I'm going to say it's 5.25%.
Okay, greater than 5%.
Okay,
fair. Yeah. Okay. Well, how you're doing this right now sounds like you're kind of like being like you're trying to say that what I'm saying is ridiculous.
A little bit, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So what the fuck is your point with that? How would we assess significance in any other degree? How would we supposed to? So clearly you're arguing that they, because you're not going to say that if they have insignificant responsibility that they should be punished this way. Fair. So how else am I supposed to assess their culpability in relation to what happened?
Because I think you're trying to come at it from a direction of like you're hitting it with this like degree of specificity that I don't think I think you're using that to try to like weasel out of some pretty just obvious observations to make. Like if you were in Ethan's shoes and you couldn't know for sure like from whose community this caller came,
you would do a shotgun blunderbuss approach.
Any reasonable,
regardless of the responsibility, regardless.
No, what I'm trying to say is any reasonable person in that position would have a shared kind of like animosity or sense of blame towards just the whole group.
Even for people who have insignificant responsibility, that would be reasonable.
I don't think there's anything
would it
like
be reasonable or not, Hutch?
But this is what I think you're doing with like you're using these words like significant and trying to get at these percentage points. Just like try to engage with what I'm saying without trying to specify it further.
Like, a person in Ethan's position, given the fact that he can't pinpoint exactly,
would be justified.
Who among the culpable parties is most responsible?
Would be justified in being angry at the whole group.
I understand what you're suggesting.
Okay.
But the question is, there's a minimum threshold. You wouldn't say that a person in Ethan's position.
But this is unquantifiable.
Oh my God, Hutch, let me fucking talk.
Okay.
So you wouldn't say that someone in Ethan's position, it would be reasonable for them to, target someone who has like no culpability, right?
Sure. Like, yes, okay. Of course. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And you would also, you would not accept that he target people who have trivial responsibility. Whatever word you want to put on it, man.
I don't think I don't think it's trivial, though.
There's a certain...
None of that.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah. And that's why you're asking for specific percentages. You did ask.
I know,
what do you mean by 5%? What did you mean by significant?
But yeah, exactly. But like you're the one that's introducing these like individual values that we can't quantify. The point is someone in Ethan's position, I think would be justified in being suspicious of everyone in the sense that like, like I don't know who's community, but it could have been any of them. And just being angry at like all of them. And certainly he was justified in feeling a sense of like what I would think would be like righteous rage that after the fact, it became a joke. it was like a joke to these people. And at best, it was a joke. At worst, the same creators after the fact, including more recently Taylor Lorenz, who was making a joke about it, like they thought it was like a source of comedy. Like that would, I don't know about you, but that would make me, I would boil with rage if that was me. Like that's not funny. There's nothing about that that's funny. We're well beyond internet beef at this point. The government, you're in the system now. Like you're asking yourself like, oh my God, are they going to take my kids away? That is way too far. And I don't think it's trivial to mock that or make light of it or justify it.
Whether you think it's trivial on some other norm of being like respectful to people, after some tragedy occurs, of like, having some standard of decency, that is a separate inquiry as to whether or not they're after, conduct behavior, like it violates some separate norm or standard of decency, separate from the act itself, right? Because I'll give you an example, right? If someone laughs at the fact that Charlie Kirk got assassinated after the fact, you wouldn't say that they're culpable for the act itself, and you would recognize that having their own like moral violation in the laughter is separate from extending culpability of the assassination itself. No, you understand that, don't you? Yes, it
would be a different kind of calculation. Yes, so like instead of what I'm saying. Right, but this is not. This is both. This is a both situation.
I've been asking for people to present when one of these three creators said that calling
you CPS just watched a video. You just watched a video.
In which she never said that. This predates. So I just want to, this is the logical entailment of you. You agree that video, edited in the way it was, represents and purports, and it makes sense that it does, that this happened before the CPS call. So she can't say, you can't say that this is her justification of the CPS event because linear time.
Yeah, correct? Yeah, that's the point. That's the point. This was before. Like, okay, hang on. Let me walk you through this, okay? Did she Did she agree with the claim that Bad Empanada was making in the video that Ethan's kids got Giardi because he was negligent?
She says that it's dangerous.
No.
Dangerous.
Did she agree is what I asked.
I'm not sure that, hang on, I'll rewatch it. So
I'll rewatch it too, because to me, she's very clearly saying like, oh, this explains so much and da. Like she's very obviously agreeing with the claim.
So someone asked that, and she's reading from a viewer who says it makes sense that he doesn't care about Palestinian kids because he's negligent about his own.
No. Like it started like 55 seconds in.
Okay, she's 55.
Ethan Klein's been up to. And every time I manage to find more and more terrible shit. This is where Ethan tells a story about his family getting Giardo.
Now we have shit Saturdays.
Shit.
Also, this is not a joking matter, by the way. It can be very severe and deadly to small children.
I'm not seeing what you're alleging.
Much like many other illnesses.
Hold on.
Very
I'll give you the exact timestamp. Hold on.
Yeah. Dangerous when infants get the same sicknesses that adults get. There are lots of things that you can get as an adult. You're totally fine. You'll be A-okay. No problem. A child, a small infant that has no immune system, shouldn't be catching anything.
No wonder his house is covered in dog shit, and his neglected children raised by nannies have contracted parasites previously unknown to science from the feces. I wonder why he skipped over all of this, because everything that I said in this story...
Okay, hold on. So 144, she goes, What do you think she meant by that?
Wait, hang on. So this is all
145. Start at 130. Start at 130, but then like
not catch anything.
Okay.
So it cuts the first cut after 130. It goes to Bad Empanada.
Yeah.
No wonder it's covered in dog shit.
Yeah.
And neglected children raised but contracted parasites previously unknown to science.
And she goes,
Which, by the way, was
skipped over all this.
Apparently compiled by his crew.
No wonder this motherfucker is always sick. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no wonder this reaction.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So that's Bad Empanada said that. She's kind of being cute and suggesting that Ethan is hiding.
Wait, hold on.
When I say cute, what I mean to say is, I'm going to grant you something. Okay? Can you? Are you listening? I don't know if you're listening.
I'm listening, but I want you to. She keeps going, and it's pretty fucking important.
We listened to it.
No. But did you listen to the rest of it? She goes. She says.
It all makes sense now. It all makes sense.
She says, "No wonder." Da. So she's like obviously granting that Bad Empanada's claims are correct.
Okay, listen, I think that she, by her tone and indication there, is suggesting that she probably is sympathetic to the view that this is neglectful, okay? I think that's pretty much implied by her conduct. I don't think it's explicit, but here's what I'm going to ask you, Hutch.
I will accept that, but I think what you're saying is a very mild interpretation of what she said, because when she says, no wonder, that is her very obviously saying
she's
that
suggesting
she believed that what he was saying was correct.
She is suggesting that by her kind of like demure or kind of like little coy little thing that she thinks that there's something like either negligent or fucked up, or there's there's potentially credence to what's going on.
Yeah,
I'm going to ask you this, Hutch. Does taking the view that Ethan was neglectful in the contraction of Giardia, as described by Ethan, does having that view that it in fact was neglectful, if that is your view, does someone with that view who expresses that view, are they culpable?
Now I'm gonna do the lawyer thing.
Let me ask the fuck, Hutch. You won't let me fucking talk because you know it's absurd.
No. Hold on. No, I'm gonna lawyer you. I'm gonna lawyer you, bro.
I am not moving. I am not going to respond unless you let me.
No, but you're doing the fucking. You can't take. Nope. Hold on. Would you agree?
You can ask your question. So you presented that to me.
Would you agree?
I granted you something. My question comes first, Hutch, and then you can ask, and I will answer. I've answered all your questions.
Why are you? Okay. I will answer your question straight up. We're getting to my questions. Ask the question again. Ask the question again.
And you interrupt me.
Ask the question again. Go ahead.
Is the expression of the view that one feels that Ethan Klein was in fact negligent with respect to the Giardia incident, does expression of that view on one stream give one culpability for a CPS call later on by some unknown party?
In a vacuum, with no other factors, no, that alone would not be enough to convict, okay? But you're familiar.
Not even close.
But you're familiar.
The ethical culpability.
Hold on. But you're familiar with the concept of like factors, right?
I understand factors.
Okay, so there's other factors. So like, it's her substantiating Bad Empanada's claim. Like she very clearly is telling her audience, oh wow, this makes so much sense now. She's very clearly saying that
implicitly
the claims
doing it, yes.
Very clearly. And then she also says, by the way, guys, this is really serious. His kids could die. And then also, hold on, I'm not done. There's one more factor, okay? Yeah. And then also, there's hella people in her chat spamming somebody should call CPS. Now, would you agree that that is some level of possible culpability?
No.
Okay.
Not for the action itself, for the CPS call. That's unhinged to think that she has culpability for that, merely that, for the CPS call. That's unhinged. And let me explain why, because we're going to get into it, right? So
you think it's a 0% chance?
So that I think is a violation. One, I don't think it's necessarily negligent what you're talking about. Kids will do things and accidents happen, and I don't think that it shows negligence. I just want to be clear about that they contracted a disease. All right. So I want to be clear that I don't agree that this is necessarily indicative of negligent behavior. Just to be honest with you. Okay.
With Ethan, with his fam. Okay. Yeah, I agree.
I'm just expressing. Why do you say I agree?
But I don't know how we got there. What are we doing? Are you responding to people in your chat?
So the thing is, I'll say things and people will distort everything I'm saying. So I want to be clear about where I stand. I don't think that the mere fact that your kid contracted Giardia, which Ethan states very strongly that he believes that his children have during the video, I don't think that the mere fact that they contracted it, even through feces, even through dog feces, even through even a perfectly responsive parent, this kind of shit happens. And I don't think that you've shown negligence by the mere fact that they've contracted this disease. The reason I'm saying this, Hutch, because it feels like I need to justify everything I say to you, is to make sure people understand my view on whether or not this entails negligence. It's not my view that it entails negligence, but the notion that if one has the belief that it is negligent, and they express that belief that they feel, they say, oh yeah, that's negligent. Why? How could you I would never let my baby do that. That's just irresponsible parenting. That the expression of that view in isolation or in conjunction with the different things that you've said, that constitutes culpability for some whack job later on who calls CPS, that is bizarre, untenable, totally fucked up, not true. And you would never apply this standard to anyone else. I mean, it really just boggles the mind that you think that independent conduct, now they could be violating their own norms of moderation. They could be violating the a standard of decency with respect to other creators, to give caveats, etc. But that is a different ethical violation than culpability for the act itself, which I want to get to. At some point, you'll let me put that out.
Well, now I want to like test your ethics here, because like, okay, so sure. For example, we've had there's been an example of a LLM that enabled someone's unaliving ideation, and then that person went on to unalive themselves. Now, the ultimate culpability for taking the decision to unalive themselves, that would be rest on the person, right? Like ultimately they're the one that made the decision, but like, does the LLM and the software company that engineered that model have any culpability there?
Yeah, so what we're talking about is the context of products liability. And I think that you can make an argument that if the usage of the device itself constitutes an unjustifiable risk, such that we can reasonably foresee that this kind of shit would happen based on that. I just think you're close to making that empirical case for this kind of conduct, and certainly not the conduct, if it's merely negligent in the context of these kinds of statement, to like, if someone who's negligent on that, you're going to get a civil judgment or something. And again, we're talking ethics here, so we're just removing it from its context. But I do acknowledge that there can be cause of action and culpability for negligence and stuff, but not when it's being like, the causal chain here is being broken by the clearly culpable actors who do the bad thing here. And so, for example, I'll give you an example. Let's say that you have some kind of inherently dangerous device. Okay, so you have a lawnmower that it contains a product defect, right? Contains a product defect, and it is dangerous to maneuver, and sometimes the shit flies off. And then so someone is operating it and uses the lawnmower to kill their own kid on purpose. Would you say that that lawnmower, which has the defect, which could, cause the death of a child in certain circumstances, carries with it a risk? You would not. Exactly, right? So you have to understand that there's this notion of in the damages context in law, again, but I think this also applies to our own intuitions and ethics. There's this notion of proximate causation. Okay, that in order to really feel liable for the kinds of things that we are talking about here, and we're talking about like big lawsuits, and from an ethical perspective, but in the civil damages context, for whatever harm is being caused, that there's some kind of attenuation, and oftentimes the causal chain is cut off by the culpable conduct of other people. So, for example, let's say that there are two actors involved in some kind of lawsuit, and one really, they did something horribly intentional and malicious. This notion of proximate causation, which is, I think, reflecting our intuitive notions of morality, that is going to, notwithstanding potential reckless conduct of others, we're going to see the cause and source of the harm as being too attenuated to track to the specific actor who was negligent, but not intentional and malicious. And so that's what I'm trying to describe here, is no doubt that there potentially is some like source of negligence here, or some kind of bad statement that's made by Denims. I would agree with that. I even agree that like she is implying that she agrees that it was negligent. What you're failing to provide is a close enough proximity to the malicious conduct. You're not even close to ascribe the kind of malicious, intentional, culpable conduct that would justify these kinds of things and bankrupting people. I mean, I don't know how to,
but I don't know how to reconcile what you just said with respect to culpability, and this idea that it's absurd to suggest that she had any culpability. I don't know how to reconcile that with the fact that you called her negligent. And I don't know how to reconcile that with the fact that you said that by not moderating, you increase the risk of something happening. You seem capable in one moment of understanding that someone can indirectly like contribute to something happening. You seem to be able to comprehend that over here, but then when we get to the point where I say she's partly culpable, just like all those creators are, you fall back on this idea that it's preposterous to even propose.
Let me build the case out. So, because clearly I'm not explaining myself well. You understand there could be different ethical obligations, correct?
Generally, like in life? Yeah. What do you mean?
So, like, you have an obligation. Yeah, in life, like you have an obligation,
yes,
not to infringe the rights of others. You have an obligation to take due care when you're driving the car. Okay.
Yes.
And a violation of one ethical obligation doesn't necessitate a violation of some other ethical obligation that is distinct. Correct.
Yes,
so, like,
sure.
The fact that so when I say that could have a self-standing violation of an obligation related to responsible moderating, and that doesn't entail culpability for the specific act. What I'm telling you is the following. You have a self-standing ethical obligation not to pursue frivolous CPS calls or, harassing false reports to CPS or whatever.
I'm not talking about.
Listen to.
Sorry.
Take a second to listen. All right.
All right.
So
you can be a little wordy sometimes. Is all.
I understand. Okay. Just all right. Ethical obligation number 1: do not falsify maliciously or state things to CPS that are frivolous or not bases for genuine concern or something like that. Okay, or not sufficient. Ethical obligation number 1. Ethical obligation number 2: do not needlessly increase risk by failing to responsibly moderate. I just gave you 2 different ethical obligations. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And you would agree that violation of one ethical obligation does not entail in any way violation of both. Correct?
No, not necessarily. Like nobody,
So
but
don't
nobody.
agree that one can violate one and not the other, right?
Yes,
one
yes,
could,
yes, yeah,
not moderate responsibly
Uh-huh.
and do the malicious call. One could do the malicious call and not responsibly moderate.
Yes.
These are not. They don't entail each other.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They're
Yeah.
separate.
Okay.
So when I say there is a risk, yet they're not culpable for the violation of the ethical obligation, what I'm telling you is they're perhaps culpable for something else, failure to responsibly moderate, but human beings and you and I see the culpability of that conduct as a lot less significant than the one person who intentionally, maliciously violates this obligation on the CPS front.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
So
that's what I'm talking
so
about.
the person who made the decision to make that call, that is the much bigger violation, in my opinion. Like that person committed something that is more immoral.
And my contention is
than being negligent. But that's not the same thing. That's not the same thing as saying that Denims has 0% culpability. Because if you acknowledge that creators wield influence, and if by not setting an example, they increase the risk of someone in their audience doing something, then they of course necessarily have contributed to that person.
They don't necessarily do that. Just merely. So if I increase it, so I'll give you an example. All right. So this should be very intuitive. Someone says to this is an unfortunate example. Sometimes we have to do these. Someone says to their daughter, their child, hey, go out into the bad part of town. I think you'll be okay if you go to the bad part of town or something, negligent parental advice. Fair.
This is a very good analogy, by the way.
I'm glad that you know where I'm going.
That's where my mind was going too, by the way. Sorry.
Okay. Someone does something horrible to this person. They murder her. And someone says, Mr. Father, sir, you are culpable for the murder. Do you agree?
Partly, yeah.
I think that is insane.
If a father told his daughter, I want you to go to the bad part of town where people get raped and killed, and then the daughter gets raped and killed, and you don't think the father would have any culpability?
Ethical culpability for the murder. All right. Not because they contributed to a risk, for the murder. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand that the father in this situation didn't literally murder the daughter, but people would rightfully ostracize that father and judge him.
Say, yes. What they would say is, you're culpable for imperiling perhaps your daughter with bad advice. But they wouldn't say that you share culpability in the murder.
Not legal culpability.
No, ethical culpability in the murder. Okay.
But the murder,
exposing oneself. Oh,
hold on, but the murder in this situation, right, would not have happened if the father didn't give that horrible advice, right?
I understand that they're a but-for cause. Now, you have, just to be clear here, I understand in the example I just provided that the father is a but-for cause. You haven't even shown in any respect that she is a but-for cause for the CPS call. You haven't even started. I just want to be clear.
I'm not making that claim.
No, I just want to be clear. I just want to make clear for the audience that you haven't even started.
I'm not making that claim.
Wait. I just want to make sure that the audience understands, right? So I'm just going to make sure the audience understands, all right? This is not for you, audience. No one has even started to make the claim that Denims, Caseytron, or Frogan are but-for causes for the CPS call. Not even started. So an example, yes, for sure. The father is a but-for cause for the death of his daughter. We don't say in the typical course of analysis that the father is partly culpable for the murder of his daughter. What we say is he's responsible in negligence in parenting. He is, culpable for creating an environment where that type of thing could occur. What he's not culpable for is the malicious and unlawful killing of his daughter. Agreed? Yes or no?
Ethically, I do think he's culpable in this spot. I totally disagree. Okay. I mean, there's a different,
I don't agree.
Well, there's a different scenario that we could use, right? Like something more direct. Like what about firearm storage, right? Like let's say your parent has a firearm and they don't properly store it, and then a kid finds a firearm and starts using it like a toy, accidentally kills himself. Is the parent culpable?
I think that culpable for negligence and for creating an unjustifiable and substantial risk.
And you don't think that a father telling his daughter to go to a part of town where people are and killed would be a similar kind of logic?
The same logic applies in the course of the parenting advice. What he's not culpable for is the murder. Do you understand the distinction there?
No.
The murder.
I don't understand how these things are different.
Okay. So do you understand how society views death in the abstract, accidents in the abstract, the causing of death of someone else as generally bad, but they view murder as something horrific? Do you understand that distinction?
Yes.
Between someone dying, for example, of natural causes, and murder. Okay.
Yes.
So there are instances in which people can have culpability for the death of somebody, no doubt. Have culpability, and usually when we apply culpability, and this is another case that this totally fails on, only when you're failing to adhere to a substantial and unjustifiable risk. Okay, sometimes there are justifiable risks, sometimes it's not a substantial risk. Let's say, for example, you tell your kid to go out into the good part of town, but for you telling her to go to the good part of town where she would be safe, it happened to be that the killer was there in the good part of town. You're a but-for cause there, but you haven't
I understand.
reached some kind of, okay,
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
So just because you share potentially some culpability in the death of somebody, in the case in which you've done something unjustifiable and you're substantially increasing risk, right? Not just moderate increase risk, substantial increase in risk, right? You tell your daughter to go drive a car down to the fucking supermarket. Now you're increasing risk, but it's not substantial and it's not unjustifiable. So, but in the case in which you are doing those things, I'm going to finish. Let me finish. I know I'm wordy. You're culpable for increasing the risk. You're not culpable for murder. That's the difference. Okay.
You're culpable, I think, partly culpable for your daughter dying. You're not, maybe, like we're quibbling about the words here, right? But like,
here's the distinction, Hutch. Hold
on, I almost had something there. Hold on,
yeah, okay.
you figured out where I was going there, right? So like, Denim's, what you're saying is like literally not culpable for like the act of calling CPS. But if we're using this analog,
right?
She could
really bad thing.
She could be culpable for the fact that CPS was called.
Okay, so she could be culpable for the increasing the risk on that and the fact that it was called. Here's the problem: you haven't even begun. You haven't even begun to make the empirical case for that, and that's not. So the reason that people are mad is the malicious aspect of it, the incriminating conduct, the call to CPS, not the fact that you've increased the risk minimally.
Wait, hold on.
That there's a potential risk, right?
Hold on. Wait, hold on.
Oh my God. I really am trying to explain.
Well, you're filibustering, bro, every time. Like
I'm not.
Yeah, you are. Like, so are you telling me right now that there is a 0% chance that someone in Denim's audience called CPS?
No, I'm not saying that.
So she could.
Wait, did you understand? So when you say could, you're going to say logically possible.
So
did you understand?
No, stop. So she could be partly culpable for CPS having been called.
No, not in my opinion. No, unless by what you mean.
You just said it was not 0% though.
Culpability does not totally turn on whether or not someone happens to emerge from a particular causal pathway in which they come from the community. Culpability relates to someone's actions at the time that they're taken. And right at the time that she takes these actions, that's the time at which we analyze whether she did a bad thing, correct?
Of course.
Yes or no?
Of course.
Okay. So
of course.
At the time she takes the action, that's the point at which you have to analyze the culpability of her conduct. At the time she says that is there a significant chance in your mind?
No,
right?
it's not significant. No, don't add that word. Problem. I didn't say that.
So when all you say is there a chance?
Yeah.
That's trivially fucking true.
There's
a chance someone interprets your words.
No.
The people are fucking crazy. What do you mean?
It's not trivial
all you mean by
because
chance is logical chance. That's crazy.
It's not trivial because we can't know. And so in the absence of certainty. Now, if Ethan knew for sure, if Ethan knew for sure whose audience that person came from, and it did come from one of their audience, okay, like surely you would agree, like the fact that that CPS was called like within a week of that stream, and she wasn't the only one watching that, so it came from that space of the internet. Would anybody even deny that? Like,
is there a chance that it came from? Is there a chance it came from your community, Hutch?
Sure. Yeah,
so
sure.
You're just as culpable as Denham's on it?
Do you think that the chances are anywhere close to the idea that it came from one of their audiences?
I don't know. I mean, do you have an intuition for that? My intuition
I'd have an intuition, yeah. I don't think it came from my audience.
My intuition is that, like, it's probably more likely on the margin that it comes from one of these particular communities.
Yeah.
The point is, the mere chance that it comes from a particular community isn't enough for you to say that there's culpability.
No, I think
hang on a second. You acknowledging that there's a distinction between the risk factor with respect to you versus Denham's is you acknowledging that significance of risk matters. And that's why you can't ignore significance of risk. When you say, I don't want to talk about significance of risk, well, then you're just not playing the same game, because by your lights, if significance of the risk doesn't matter, you and I are both culpable, because it's possible, I guess, it's something we said triggered some fucking crazy person. So you need to talk about significant risk if you even want to get close to culpability.
I just want to get, like, because I feel like it's been 2 hours now about, like, we're trying to get what we're ultimately trying to get at was Ethan justified in being furious with these creators collectively? Like, that's the point that I'm trying to get at. That's what this conversation is all about for me. I'm trying to, because hold on. Because we're trying to unpack, like, whether or not Ethan's actions were justified or they fit what happened is, like, basically what we're trying to get at here. And I'm in a situation like this where you can't know and you'll never know. There's no way, unless the person came forward and admitted it and said whose community they came from, you just can't know. And so if you're in Ethan's shoes and you see a pool of, I'll make it up, like a dozen creators, and they're all making light of the situation, tacitly encouraging it, justifying it, making jokes about it, but you can't know which one specifically it came from. The point is, it could have been like any of them, plausibly. It could have been any of their audiences. And so in that moment, I understand being angry with, like, everybody. At the very least, I mean, surely you.
But you understand? You mean, like, you can understand his human emotion?
I would understand. No. Beyond an emotion, I can understand in that moment wanting accountability, wanting the question isn't whether you to impose consequences for that violation done to me.
The question, Hutch, isn't whether you understand the feeling or wanting it. The question is it right to do? Is it right to file lawsuits in this context, or to do whatever act that if we haven't even breached yet and talked about, if you're not sure whether a particular person is culpable for the action, or is either, for example, intentional about what they're doing, or significantly increasing risk, right? Would you ever say that it would be justified to do something like otherwise bad or malicious towards an individual who doesn't have evidence that they intentionally increased risk or try to do it, or B, no evidence that the risk that they imposed was significant? No, you wouldn't. You have to examine the quantum of risk here. It's impossible to ignore it.
I think we evaluate responsibility just way differently. I think this is an irreconcilable difference of opinion here.
I don't agree. So just to be clear, is it your position today that Denham's significantly increased the risk that someone called CPS?
Yes.
In virtue of what?
In virtue of why are you asking me this question?
In virtue of what?
It's the three factors. It's the three factors. I'll say them again, though. Do you want me to say them again? I already said this. It's the three factors. Yeah, so what's the empirical case there? Number one, she platformed the Bad Empanada video and co-signed his claims. Co-signed onto them and expressed very, in my opinion, explicitly that she agreed with the claims. She then said that Ethan's kids might die. And she saw people in her chat making a call to action to like somebody needs to call CPS, and she refused to moderate. That to me,
do you have any evidence that she saw those? Do you have any evidence that she saw those messages? Do you have evidence that she saw those messages? Yes or no?
No. We'll say no.
So you can't know. You can't know that she was refusing to moderate responsibly, right?
She constantly stares at chat. It's like a meme with her. It's constantly stares at chat.
You just said on your
do you
own
think
lights,
it's do you think it's plausible? Do you think it's plausible that she wasn't looking at chat at all? Had no idea what was going on?
If by plausible you think that it's reasonably likely, yes. I mean, I don't look at chat. I
Reasonably
haven't been looking
likely?
at chat.
No, come on.
But based on in virtue of what? You know that she like steadfastly, intentionally refused to moderate. Are you telling me that you see every one of your chat
Have you watched
messages?
a lot of her content?
No, I haven't fucking watched it.
Hang on a second.
No.
This kind of blows my mind. I've watched a lot of Denim's content. You're saying you haven't watched a lot of her like at all? Like at all?
No, I haven't watched a lot of Denim's content.
Why are you speaking so confidently on this then? Like, I don't
With respect to
understand.
what?
Why are you giving your opinion about like, well, it doesn't seem likely to me if you don't know anything about her content?
No, so there usually is a requirement, right? If you're going to make a case that she intentionally, it's your claim, isn't it? That she intentionally refused to moderate those calls to CPS. Isn't it your burden to show that? Is it your burden?
I'm just a little lost. I'm just hold on. I'm just trying to process what I'm experiencing with you right now.
I mean, you can make all these appeals to like.
Don't you think it would help you in these conversations to spend some time like familiarizing yourself with these people, their character, their content?
Is it your burden?
You don't think that's relevant to the analysis?
So if you make a claim, is it your burden?
Stares at chat and interacts with chat.
Do you constantly stare at chat? Do you constantly stare at chat and respond to it?
Yes.
Do you read everything that the chat says?
Not all the time. No.
Okay, so in virtue of the fact that someone tends to look at the chat a lot,
if I'm having a conversation with you, but if it's just me and chat and I'm watching the video, I'm constantly watching chat.
Okay, so but the mere fact that someone tends to look at chat, don't you have an additional burden to show that they actually disregarded, this risk?
So your whole thing here is saying maybe she didn't see it in chat. That's what you're saying.
Hutch, I asked you a question. Is it your claim or not? And do you have the burden? That's the question.
I'm not interested in this line with you. I'm not interested in this line of questioning. I find it preposterous. Because you're trying to weasel out of like
you don't have a burden.
I don't think you should have such confident opinions when you don't know anything about these creators.
That's my point. Wait, who made the claim? Did you make the claim that she disregarded and intentionally didn't moderate, or did I make that claim?
Why wouldn't you familiarize yourself with her out of curiosity?
So between us, who made the affirmative claim?
No, I want to move past this. I want to move past the other thing.
Hutch, I'm not going to move past it because you're making a claim and saying that I'm doing something weird by not watching all of Denim's comments.
Because you've said it before, though. You've said it before. Like, you made this conversation about...
Simple question.
You made this conversation about...
As between us, who made the claim about Denim's
I'm not going to go down this road with you. I'm not.
I'm not going to not go down this road.
You made this conversation about, like, whether or not his actions were justified or appropriate, like an appropriate response to the stuff that they did. You'll say that in one breath, but then you'll also say that you don't really know much about the creators or what they did. It's like, why wouldn't you take the time to like look into that first, though? I don't understand.
Hang on a second. So this is an inartful thing that you're doing. The mere fact that I haven't watched all of Denim's content.
But it's important, though.
Wait, hang on. The mere fact that I haven't, so I'm just going to address what you just said. I am going to go back to my line, so you haven't distracted me from that. The mere fact that I haven't watched all of Denim's content, or all of Casey Tron's content, or all of Frogan's content, that is not any contradiction between me and my opinions thus far. Can you identify a contradiction or some kind of thing that doesn't make sense on that view?
Well, you seemed taken off guard when you looked at the...
Can you not?
Like, you got taken off guard when you were watching.
You just made an additional claim. You just made an additional claim. You said it was weird.
Generally speaking, though, you don't think it would. Generally speaking, though, you don't think it would behoove you to like familiarize yourself with these creators and what they said and did during that time. You seem to have not like looked into it very much, but you also have these strong opinions about Ethan and the severity of like what he did compared with what he was responding to.
for the scope of my claims, I believe I've done appropriate research for the scope of my claims. I haven't made broader claims that would require me to do the kind of research that you're talking about.
But are you not claiming?
Wait, did you? So Hutch. I just answered all your concerns.
Are you not claiming that he is taking it too far?
Hutch. I just answered your claims.
Are you not claiming that he's taking it too far?
I just answered your concerns. Did you make a claim about Denham's intent or not?
Yes. Her very,
isn't it your burden?
Like,
is it
I
your
think
burden?
to any reasonable person who is familiar with this situation and familiar with her, I think any reasonable person would come to the conclusion that she did see what was going on in her chat.
So is it your burden to demonstrate that?
Beyond what is it?
To a reasonable certainty.
I'm not here to try to convict in front of a jury. I'm just saying a reasonable person would come to the conclusion that she was watching her chat and she saw what they were saying. And her rhetoric here. I'll give you something to support the claim. I'll give you something to support the claim, okay?
Hutch, no, Hutch. So first I want to establish it is your burden. You agree it's your burden to demonstrate your claim, correct?
Who cares?
Is it your burden or not?
I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm actually physically tired right now.
This would go by a lot faster if you just acknowledge the obvious. If you
no, but you're trying to do these lawyer tricks. You're tricking me. You're trying to trick me right now. Yeah, you are. Any reasonable person thinks that she was looking at her chat and saw anybody. Okay, you can say, well, was it 100%? No, I don't know. So 100%.
Are you saying that you assume it? Are you assuming it?
I think it's a safe assumption. Yes.
Are you? So an assumption, in other words, is something that you don't justify. Fair?
I could be wrong.
Okay, but
sure,
you made a claim.
It's possible.
So here's the problem, right? If you make a claim about a particular intent, and this is, by the way, not too dissimilar to what you say of me, right? Like, don't you say the same thing to me? You're like, you can't say you know Ethan's intent. You have to prove that. And now when I come back with you and say, hey, listen, when you're trying to speak about Denham's intent, don't you need to show that? You're like, I don't want to answer that question. You made me tired. I mean, what the fuck?
Okay, do you think it's possible that she didn't see anything in her chat?
By possible, do you mean logically possible?
Plausible. Do you think it's plausible that she didn't see any of that?
Yeah. So I think plausible is like, is there a decent chance she didn't see it? I think it's decent.
Okay.
Because guess what?
Okay.
The reason I have that intuition is because both you and I agree that we don't see the entirety of our chats. Okay. And you would agree, by the way, between you and I, we don't see the vast majority of chats that come on our chat, correct?
I think I see most of the chat. It's only when I'm having conversations like that, like now, or I'm like really invested in what I'm watching. But at this point in my career, back when I was playing video games, fuck no, I barely looked at chat. It wasn't that often. These days, I constantly look at both chats. And so does she, by the way. That's her whole thing. She's constantly interacting with chat. That's her pattern. That's what I know about her as a creator. Hang on. I'm trying to support the claim, okay? Like, I know this about her as a creator, is that she is constantly interacting with her chat. Like, constantly. Like they are a big part of their content. Like some creators, like I don't know if Destiny necessarily does it in the same way. Like he interacts with chat, but it's like he's off doing his own thing. He's kind of doing his own react or whatever. Like not everybody works that way. She's constantly
try to make a concerted effort to look at my chat, and I miss like 50+% of everything that comes up there.
You say it's plausible. She missed it. Okay. But
but even putting that aside, even if I granted it, Hutch, even if I granted that she bears culpability for failure to mitigate these kinds of risks, failure to moderate, it just doesn't extend to the act itself. That kind of thing, we don't have that normative intuition that a failure to adjust for risk, that this is a substantial risk, that based on this content someone's going to call CPS. You couldn't justify that, man. You couldn't justify that there's a substantial risk that given that statement, that someone as a result of that is the natural and probable consequence of that is that someone calls CPS. It just isn't tailored to it.
I can easily justify putting myself in Ethan's shoes and looking at the whole space that dogpiled and joked about it and egged it on and justified it. I can easily justify in that moment feeling like they all share culpability for contributing to that, to their collective audience's culture of like,
but that's a separate
unrivaled levels of like, we're beyond hostility at that point. It was one of the most like vicious pylons I've ever seen in my entire career, going back nearly 2 decades.
The lefties do that to you.
Not like, listen, I've been on the receiving end of some vicious shit, and nothing came close to what the clients went through. I mean, do you acknowledge that? Do you acknowledge that the act of Like, hold on, let me ask you a question.
I've already done that. Yeah, CPS is bad. That's why
now I got a different question.
Why are you talking about it? And I did say that.
All right, I have a different question. What do you think is worse? Like, what do you think is the more significant action? The lawsuits or the CPS?
Calling CPS vindictively and maliciously.
Okay.
But that's not the question. The question isn't.
It is though.
Between these. No, it's fucking not. You need to connect the creators to the culpable actions. And even if, by the way,
they're all culpable in my mind.
So I'm so pleased that I'll see this, you applying this standard to liberals, you apply this standard to all sorts of creators who have, let's just put it modestly, less than stellar reputations and actions when it comes to moderation of their communities. Let's just to put it mildly. I mean, like,
I've called those people out. I've called them out.
That they're culpable. So if someone crazy does something to Pisco because they say that he's, whatever they say, you're going to be like, oh, all these people who are making false claims and piling on Pisco, these people have collective responsibility for the murder of Pisco. You would never say that.
Surely you would agree that when we're talking about like politicians, that kind of culpability, that would be spread out like amongst hundreds of thousands of creators and people with platforms and influence. It's a little bit different in this situation when we're talking about
the Republicans' argument about Charlie Kirk, that after the fact, the Democrats are fostering communities where they're doing things that with their natural consequence is it causes crazy people to. So I just want you to know this entire thing. I've been trying to show you that the standard you're applying is the conservative standard on Charlie Kirk.
No,
and you just said it perfectly. Yes, it's scattered across. That's the Republicans' theory for why Democrats deserve culpability for all these crazy lunatics doing crazy shit.
If you
just described it, man.
If you think I'm being inconsistent, you should just ask my chat. What was I saying about people that were making jokes about Charlie Kirk?
You were not saying they're culpable for murder. You were not saying that.
No. What I was saying was...
You weren't saying that, right? You weren't saying that, right?
No, that's not what I was saying. But like, again, this is not analogous at all. But what I was telling my chat, like that day, the day after, like I didn't find any of the jokes funny. Like I was telling people that this was a time for everybody to.
I don't agree with the jokes.
Right. No, but that's me being consistent, though. I'm saying like we all have a.
You're not calling them culpable.
No,
you're not.
No, so but you would be culpable in a much more abstract sense of contributing to that kind of culture.
And the only reason that I'm picking on Destiny here is simply because he has the most like I don't know spicy takes.
I called him out.
No,
I told.
So here's the question. I'm not saying did you call him out or not. Don't confuse the issues, Hutch. And I'm not going to get confused by it. So just be clear. Is Destiny culpable for the murder of Charlie Kirk because he joked about it afterward in ways that you find reprehensible? Is he culpable for the murder?
No, of course not.
Okay, so the mere fact that you're part of a collective that jokes about it after the fact, makes light of the murder, does some kind of funny memes about it, that is not enough to satisfy culpability on this shit.
No, but even what I'm not talking about, like, so there's culpability for like a shared responsibility for fostering communities where this sort of behavior is encouraged and celebrated and joked about. Like that's one thing. And then there's like culpability for the act itself. And then there's like joking about it after the fact. And like all of these things. But no, but I'm saying all of these things are relevant considerations when we evaluate. Was Ethan justified in taking extreme actions?
I totally agree. But here's the problem, though. Here's the problem. The culpability for failure to moderate, the culpability for failure to making light of stuff, right? And when you shouldn't do it, it's being conflated with the malicious act of the call itself. That's the sneaky part. That's the part that doesn't.
But I'm not conflating.
Whether you are or not, people are, and they're saying, well, and you almost did. I actually think you did it here by saying, well, don't you acknowledge by failure to moderate, you acknowledge that there's some culpability there. Therefore, there's culpability for the actual act. No, we cannot conflate these. We really can't.
I'm not conflating it. I feel like you're trying to do this thing where you're conflating it to try to like make the point that it's absurd to say that they're responsible because ultimately it's up to the person that did it. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like if you are irresponsible in your lack of moderation, in your own words, increase the risk of someone in your audience doing something like that.
You're responsible for that. But if that conduct doesn't rise to a certain level of significance, it's negligible, right? So you need to make it's not enough to say you increase the risk. You will accept this, Hutch. It's not enough.
It's not trivial. None of this is trivial. I don't think any of them have clean hands in this situation.
That's not my point. You would agree, wouldn't you, that raising the risk minorly isn't culpable conduct, right?
for the act itself, literally according to
easy.
your standard, no, but you have contributed. In my
on
opinion,
your view. I'm not asking on my view, on your view. On your view, if you raise the risk just a tiny little bit, that's not culpable conduct, is it?
Not necessarily, no. But like, here's the thing, though. Like,
yeah,
yes, if you as a creator and you have a platform and you're making jokes about the CPS call or whatever, you are contributing directly to a culture that is being fostered in that community of celebrating something that I find to be like really reprehensible, abhorrent, disgusting behavior. And anybody in Ethan's position would have been furious. Like, do you understand that? Like, even if we found out, for example, even if we could say for sure that person came from Bad Empanada's community specifically, I would still in my mind, I would still in my mind think and say that they're all culpable because they're all contributing in their own ways. And it's like, obviously we're getting very abstract here, but that's where my mind goes with it. Like, it could have been, regardless of the significance of the risk, any of them, right? Like, it could have been any of them.
So people calling Charlie Kirk a fascist and saying,
"Don't stop! I don't care."
Charlie Kirk thing.
No,
it's not. It is not.
No, I don't. No, Charlie Kirk was a national figure who had way more. But like, if you're going to ask me in a broad
Ethan
sense,
Klein is not a national figure. Like, what is the distinction
like
here?
Charlie Kirk? What are we talking about here? No, of course
really
not.
Making a distinction on that regard? Like, okay, like Ethan.
Yeah, of course we are.
I don't even know if that's true. I mean, maybe in our bubble, but I don't know that Ethan Klein is less or more popular than Charlie Kirk or more well known. They're comparable, aren't they?
Like, let me just ask you. Like, okay, so you have family, I assume. So like, let's say a bunch of like a deranged MAGA person who followed you. There was a bunch of smaller creators, or bigger creators, right? Like, and they all started like memeing about how, one of your family members was like abusing their kids, and then CPS showed up at the house, right? Like, and are you telling me you wouldn't be like almost equally pissed at like everybody who was possibly indirectly responsible for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would be pissed at people who are making light of it. People if I had evidence that they were encouraging it, if I felt that they were like spreading lies that someone could take that way. That's a different. You keep trying to find different ways to ask the same question, which is, could there be independent obligations? Okay, I'm trying to explain. Like, you're finding different ways to ask it, but fundamentally, you haven't crossed the divide, which is the mere increase of a risk in violation of some ethical obligation to, moderate or to be wise with your words or not say stupid shit that someone could take a certain way. That does not translate to culpability for the malicious vindictive acts. And we cannot conflate those levels of responsibility or culpability. And what's being used to justify these lawsuits, again, putting aside the issue of whether his intent is to protect the React community, which is so bizarre and fucked up and not true. But even putting that aside, the argument you get is that shit doesn't even matter. Like, fuck that analysis, Pisco. Who cares about it? Because these people are just so awful because they're culpable for the CPS call. That's what I'm hearing, and I just think that is just totally wrong-headed analysis.
I think they did awful. I think they did an awful thing. I think all of them contributed to a really awful thing, and they all mocked it and trivialized it. I think it was disgusting.
Was it disgusting for Destiny to ridicule Charlie Kirk's death?
I think so. Yeah, I said so at the time. Yeah, okay. I said it was disgusting.
And
I had DGG in my audience that were pushing back. I said, I don't think this is funny. I don't think this is a funny moment right now. I think he's
culpable for, if anything?
I think he's culpable for in that moment for contributing to a culture of political violence through his rhetoric.
Isn't that the Republican argument?
No, the Republican argument would be like Destiny himself is like directly responsible because of this, that, or the other thing. But we're getting into more abstract kind of ideas, right?
Then that's the scope of my claim with respect to Denims. Is you can't conflate the moral ethical obligation with respect to the substantive act.
I didn't though, but I still think what they did was disgusting. I think it was disgusting. I think it was so dehumanizing. I think it was antisocial, and I think all of those creators abused the influence that they had. They're all like drunk with power on in their own like way.
Okay, and given that the fact that they joked about, let's say assume that Casey Tron joked about the CPS call. All right, I'm going to assume that for the purposes of the next stage of what we're talking about, that she joked about the CPS call. Therefore, it's justified to, supposing this is the motivation, to sue her on that basis alone?
I think it's justified to want to impose consequences, and the debate would be about like, is this an appropriate consequence? And I've already told you I'm somewhat agnostic on that. Like I'm somewhat conflicted because I'm sympathetic to his desire for like a sense of justice or a sense of like wanting to punish the people who you feel contributed in their own way to your family, like suffering and your own personal suffering. But I'm also sympathetic to like I don't want Denims to be her wages garnished for the rest of her life, or
you wouldn't want them to be financially destitute, right? For laughing.
I mean, I don't wish that on my worst enemy. You know, that's just
and obviously like they shouldn't be beat up for joking about it, right? They shouldn't be beat up. They shouldn't be they shouldn't be banned for it. Should they be banned? I wouldn't condone violence. I mean, I as far as they should be banned, like I think it would be justified for some kind of penalty. I don't know if I've ever advocated that people be permanently banned from Twitch, but the fact that like that crowd, they've gotten away with so much shit that nobody else would get away with, and I think it's pretty obvious at this point that the people. That could be true.
Okay.
I'm not here to deny that. That's why I think that the level of research I've done is appropriate for the scope of my claims. Is I'm not making a claim that they have gotten away with stuff. I'm not making a claim that they're good or bad people. I'm not making the claim that they haven't said shit that by itself is reprehensible or bad. I don't think it's justified to make sort of implications that on the bare thing that Ethan said, even the Giardia thing. I think it's disgusting and oversharing that you would say that, but that's just my own personal taste. I don't think that it's justified to conclude that therefore it's negligence. I don't, and I think that anyone who does, you need more facts to establish negligence in that context. The mere fact, but just because I think that doesn't mean that I think that they're culpable for the underlying thing. And here's
you said she was
facts about the what's that?
You
culpable
said
for.
No.
Oh my God.
No.
For not the substantive thing, but for failure to moderate or whatever, the negligence perhaps in that, but not like with respect to the actual CPS call. That's the difference.
I don't know how to make sense of that in my mind. Like she's negligent because she did something that increased the risk of something happening, and then the thing happened, but because she didn't do the exact thing, it's really kind of trivial. Her negligence. I don't know how to make sense of that. That doesn't make any sense to me. I can't reconcile those two things.
There are evidentiary problems on all this, right? So there's an evidentiary problem that the kind of risk by making these kinds of like cute little, guys, whoa, that this increases significantly the risk of someone calling CPS. I don't think that that's established, and that any one of those jokes or something, or even intimations that something is wrong, the conclusion therefore is that there's a substantial and unjustifiable risk that a CPS call will occur. So even just on the empirical case for this being a significant risk, I don't think that the people who are claiming that it's a significant risk have made their case for that. Secondly, to the extent that they have any culpability, so far the evidence, I think you'd agree with this, doesn't show that they intentionally tried to actualize a CPS call. Fair?
I don't think so.
That, right?
I could be wrong. There's some clips I haven't seen.
People should not treat them as though they intended it. Fair?
No, wait, but hang on. Like,
should they treat them? Wait. Should they treat them? First, answer that, and then you can explain.
I'm trying to go back to answer the question. Though.
I understand, but I just want to hear this first. Should people treat them as though they intended the CPS call on current facts?
I think people should treat them as though they explicitly justified it to their audiences.
That's not what I'm saying. That they intended for this to occur and they wanted it to occur.
Oh, I don't know. You'd have to ask her, but that's not. I mean, that's not even the most relevant consideration, though. Like, that kind of doesn't matter. Like, was she intending for someone in her audience to just? She knew she was taking a risk. She knew that she was being. Well, maybe she didn't, but like, I think she knew. I think all of them knew that they were. I think they were like dog whistling about it. I think they thought Ethan was evil, and I think that they think that making him suffer was justified. That's what all of their rhetoric and behavior.
Do you think that they should be treated as though they intended for this result to occur?
I think it's understandable for Ethan to view it that way.
So what do you take to be the justification that for the CPS call specifically that Denim said? Do you
have
any even like notion of what was said? That after
we just saw that. Hold on, we just saw that. We just saw the same video. Was before. That was before. That's even worse.
But that wasn't her justifying CPS call, right?
Of course it was. What do you mean? Of course it was.
No, it wasn't.
His kids have Giardia and they might die.
Is that a justification for a CPS call?
Yes.
No, wait, hang on a second.
What do you mean?
The mere fact that a child contracts a disease, an illness, even through a potential like a negligence event, that is not justification for a CPS call. Justification for CPS call would be something like this: wow, they're a danger. Like, I think that CPS should be called, or someone should talk to the government about this, or this is what, like, people need to check in on his kids and like go to the authorities. Those are things that sound like justification for intervention.
She said, or very explicitly implied, that Ethan's kids might die. That's not a justification to call CPS?
No, it's not.
What?
No, it's not.
Come on, bro. What are we doing here?
So the mere fact
I'm getting a little frustrated with you. Of course, that's why CPS exists, bro. I'm not saying she was right about her analysis of like Giardia. Apparently Giardia is like very common, but she was telling her audience like that they have this thing and they might die. That's what she said. CPS exists for that.
So if I had that view, you're saying if I had the view that this is dangerous to the child and that they were negligent, that means I'm justifying CPS call?
If you're telling your audience that someone's kids might die because they're being neglected, then yes, that's an obvious, like, assume she was correct, right? Like assume she was correct and they were being neglected and they might die. Is that a justification to call CPS?
Yeah, no, like I think that someone could use that as part of their justification to call CPS.
No.
That's different.
No. Is it a justification? You're not
understanding. No, you need an additional assumption. You need an additional argument to call CPS. So I'll give you an example, right? So I'll give you an example because you're going to agree with this one, right? So if someone says, if you don't vaccinate your kids, it's dangerous to the health of your kids. And look, these guys aren't vaccinating their kids, and it's dangerous to the health of their kids, and they could die if they don't get vaccinated. Look, there's something going on. Is that justification to call CPS? Is that person justifying CPS calls? Yes or no?
In their minds and to their audience, yes.
No, the mere fact that you're saying that people are imperiling the lives of their kids is not a justification for calling CPS. And the example I just provided, you would never say if a liberal said, like,
you're not understanding my point. You're not understanding my point. You're sailing past my point.
Oh my God.
I'm saying
it crushes your argument.
No.
It crushes your fucking argument.
The question, it's not about whether or not Giardia actually represented as a mortal threat to the kid. That's not the point. She was claiming that the kids were going to die because they were being neglected. And so people in her audience
are gonna die. Wait, did she claim they're gonna die?
That's what you just watched the same clip, man. Do you need to watch it again? We watched it twice now.
Okay, so
she said kids can die from this, bro. That's what she said.
Okay, so this is the context in which I'm trying to apply your standard to a case to see if you're consistent. This is called testing you. It's an internal critique. I'm trying to see if you're being consistent, right? So if a liberal is watching a video of some conservatives say, I didn't get my kids are totally unjabbed and on everything. I didn't give them the jab of anything. I don't give it on COVID. Let me finish the question, Hutch. On COVID, I didn't give them the jab on MMR. I didn't give them this on anything. And frankly, I think the health results speak for themselves, and they're fine. And a liberal commentator says, this is very dangerous. They could die of these various different illnesses. This is so negligent. Mm-hmm. Is that yes or no them justifying calling CPS?
In their minds, yes.
No.
Or it could justify some significant intervention.
So if someone calls CPS in virtue of that statement, would you apply culpability to the person who said,
"Yeah, this is
hey,
a perfect.
This
is like the perfect." Hang on.
Hutch.
No, this is the perfect.
You fucking wouldn't.
Okay, say what you want to say, and then let me say what I want to say.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so let's say I'm like a super pro-vax like YouTuber streamer guy, and like my content is like focused on like Pfizer being fucking awesome and all the vaccines being so great. And let's say I cultivated an audience of like thousands of people, and my whole thing is that, like MAGA parents are putting their kids at risk for that they might kill their kids because they might get COVID and they might die. And then I said and then I implied that like their kids might die. And then somebody in my audience or shortly after this happened, like called the authorities and tried to have government intervention. Like this is a plausible. Would I be partly responsible for that?
Afterwards, no, you wouldn't. So if afterwards, the streamer comes up, You would not be.
There's no way you think that.
So,
I don't think you think
I
that.
literally do. This is how. So if afterwards someone called CPS on the anti-vaxxer or whatever, and the streamer came out and said, "Guys, why the fuck did you do this? This is wrong." No one would be like, "Hang on, you justified the call of CPS." They'd be like, "No, that's not what I said.
Sure,
I didn't justify
sure
it."
they might. Sure they might. What do you
No, but
mean?
who would have the better of the argument? The guy who
That
said
doesn't
yes,
matter.
you told me
Who
to do it.
cares? The argument doesn't need to be good.
Who has the better of the argument doesn't matter.
She was making a shitty, unscientific claim, as she often does, by the way. She was making a bad claim. It's not true that that the Giardia was as deadly as she was presenting. I think like a quarter of kids in the country at any given time have Giardias or something like that. But that's not what she told her audience. She told her audience that Ethan's kids might die.
The example I'm giving you is one in which the same kind of thing. These kids could die if they don't get vaccinated. You understand the lethality rate for this? No,
but there's precedent. But there's legal precedent. Right? I think people generally kind of, or they could Google stuff when is it appropriate to call CPS? If it was true that Ethan was neglecting his kids in the way that they were suggesting, then it would be justified to call CPS, right? That there's a legal precedent for that, right?
There's an additional inference that you need to make that I would impose on anyone claiming that this person is culpable for that action. That I could say something like this. So I'll just tell you, right?
No, you didn't answer my question though.
Wait, what was your question? Sorry, I missed it then. Say it again.
If you found out that parents were neglecting their kids to the extent that the kids were literally playing with dog shit and contracting is it, a viral disease? Whatever it is?
I'm not a doctor.
Okay. If you knew that parents were let's leave out Giardia. If you knew that there were some parents out there that were neglecting their kids so much that the kids were playing with dog shit just like all throughout the day, would you be justified in calling CPS?
I'm not sure that you would be, but on those facts alone. In my view,
there's no way you think this. There's no way you think this.
What I'm saying is, they're very different things, right? Like that, a person making the argument that it would just be justified on those facts. That's different. Like if someone were to give out those facts and ask you the question, is it justified to call CPS? Then congratulations, you justified CPS. But there's an additional inference that needs to be made that government intervention in this specific case is warranted. And there could be a ton of contravening factors that would cause someone to say, notwithstanding that it's negligent, notwithstanding that there's a risk of a kid being materially affected in terms of their health, that calling CPS is still not justified given X, Y, Z. There's an additional set of inferences and considerations that any reasonable person is going to think about, especially half of these people who don't even think the police should exist and think that like everything should be fucking social workers and there should be no coercive force of the state at all. So all I'm saying is you haven't made your case alone by saying that they justified CPS by stating merely that they thought that there was a material effect on health and that they're negligence. Right. And even here is less of an inference given the fact that she didn't actually say that. She just kind of like,
No. Like, she said that kids will die from that disease, that she agreed that bad empanada was like, she agreed with all that. She said that kids die from that and it's very serious. Like, what if a kid went to school and told his teacher, my parents neglect me all day and I play in dog shit? Would the teacher be legally obligated to call the authorities?
That's different. Yeah, no, I think that there could be a duty to report in those circumstances. But that's a separate question. It's
okay.
That's a separate question from whether the individual who made such claims is themselves justifying CPS to be called. Someone could make that claim. You acknowledge. So I want to hear you acknowledge this. All right. Someone could make that report and say, yeah, I saw them playing in dog shit, and then let's say the teacher is a mandatory reporter, call CPS, and then they go there. And the person who said that, what the fuck? Why did you call CPS? I didn't want you to do that. And there's no contradiction there. Agreed? Yes or no?
I don't follow.
Okay, the example is as follows. A kid, or let's say another adult, a fellow adult talks to a teacher and says, Billy, they're letting them play in like this very dangerous backyard. I don't think that it makes sense. I don't know what to do about it. Tell the teacher understands their obligations that they're mandatory reporter or whatever. And they go and say that. And then the teacher comes back and says, I had to take your shit to the higher ups. Mm-hmm. And then the person who reported it says, what the hell? I trusted you. Why did you call that? That was wrong to do. Why'd you do that?
Well, we're talking about a hypothetical kid in this situation, right?
Oh my God. The question is there an inconsistency between the person who made that complaint and them being frustrated and upset that CPS was called? Is there an inconsistency? No, there's not, Hutch. No, there's not. Someone could take the view that notwithstanding the risk to the child, that notwithstanding the fact that there's perceived negligence, that the cost and harm of calling CPS is not justified given the circumstances. And you need to make an additional inference before you make the claim that they justified it, unless you're willing to grant the vaccine cases, which I don't even know. Like, are you even trying to distinguish those? How are you even trying to distinguish those?
What I'm getting at is what Denham's alleged. She supported these claims. She agreed with the claims and expanded on them. The claim that she was making was that Ethan's kids are being so severely neglected that they're playing in dog poop and contracting serious diseases that can kill them.
Right. Those are facts from which one could justify calling CPS.
Yes.
They are not themselves a justification for CPS.
But I'm not making that claim. I didn't make that claim.
Okay.
Didn't make that claim.
But the whole point of raising this is to say the mere fact that someone has that opinion, you should not carry with that the intent that they want to actualize the state of affairs in which CPS is in fact called. And what I'm calling out is the notion that people will claim that based on these statements that they were advocating it happened and we should treat them as such.
But
that was your claim too.
But she didn't present it as an opinion. She presented it as a fact. Ethan's kids are being severely neglected. They're playing in shit and they're contracting diseases that might kill them. And that is why I'm trying to demonstrate. You said before that her lack of moderation was negligent. And I'm trying to demonstrate why it was negligent is because what she said, somebody who's watching her stream, who takes her as a good faith actor, who takes her at her word, might feel justifiably concerned about Ethan's kids because of that lie.
That's true of anyone who even watches the video at all, even to do the bare minimum of criticizing the view. The mere fact that someone could, right, doesn't mean that it's likely. No.
It's not the same thing, bro. If you're watching a video and criticizing it, you're saying, well, it's kind of the same thing as like her saying, no, his kids are going to die. It's not the same thing, man.
If you keep running into the same wall, I'm gonna bring it up every time. The mere you don't need to just show that it's possible that someone could have that interpretation. What you need to show is that they either intended it or that it's extremely likely that it would occur given those statements. And I just don't see a case for that.
Okay.
But that's we haven't even reached the lawsuit aspect of it. This is just to I think this is an insanely harsh standard. And I'm not just saying that because they're fucking lefties. Fuck them. And they did this shit with fucking Kamala and whatever. I don't think that they endorsed Kamala and all this other shit about the election. I'm not here. I'm just here because I'm noticing shit and it's making people upset that this kind of standard of moderation where they're responsible for the substantive acts because they fail to moderate responsibly, that is a standard that ought not be applied to people across the board. And it is not applied to people across the board.
So she was negligent, but she has no responsibility.
She is negligent to the extent of violating the obligation to minimize risk, because I think that there's some amount of risk.
Okay.
What she's not culpable for is the actual calling of CPS.
That's
what she's not culpable for.
Nobody made that claim.
They are making the claim.
No, they didn't.
What the fuck?
Who?
Are you even in the discussion?
Who said that she called CPS? Who's saying that?
No. Culpable for the CPS call doesn't mean she literally called CPS. All right. Culpable means morally responsible for the CPS call.
She is obviously ethically responsible to moderate her audience and to be responsible with her rhetoric.
I agree with that.
Like every other creator. And there were very serious consequences that happened as a result of actions that they all took. They all did it. All of them did the same thing. And they're all, in my opinion, responsible for that.
As though they're intentional actors here and wanted the outcome to occur.
Yeah.
I don't think that you would ever apply that standard to
I would.
Anybody of your no.
You think you think this is about the fact that they're like lefties? That's what this is about? Really?
No, if I call, so for example, I call a bunch of MAGA people in the administration and these influencers fascist, you agree that that could lead someone reasonably to take that as we should kill them.
No, we have a different. No, we have a different opinion about reasonableness here, because fascism is a real thing. There's descriptors. You can make the case in this, that, and the other thing, and then you can also make the case that the way that the difference again is that like there is no element of you even remotely implying that it would be justified to do political violence. The difference between that and Denham's is that she did lay out her justification, an attempt at a sincere justification to involve.
You wouldn't say because I called Charlie Kirk a fascist. Now someone could take that statement and believe it's true, and then justify the action against Charlie Kirk. But I am not justifying. No, this is what Republicans do, right? They think because I call Charlie Kirk a fascist that I am saying he should be killed. But that's an inference that I didn't make. The scope of my claims are the scope of my claims. Now, there could be instances in which one could imply it. I'm not saying it, I'm not a literalist, okay? And don't try to paint me as a literalist. I'm not a literalist. But from what I saw of Denham's, there is not even an implication there that what she wants to see, what she wants to actualize, is the state of affairs in which CPS is called. And even Ethan has backed away from that claim, as I understand it.
Nonetheless, her and all of them contributed in their own ways with their own communities.
Just like I did to Charlie Kirk.
No, I don't find this analogous at all.
Can you explain why they're different?
Because you are trying to make the case that it is plausible that she didn't see what was going on in her chat. Like you're trying to, and I don't accept that. I don't find that plausible. I think that's ridiculous. I think she obviously saw that, and I suspect that's why she started to go down that road rhetorically, even talking about that. I think she was bouncing off of them at that point. I think that is the logical inference.
What I'm telling you is a Republican could come back and say, listen, I don't care. You know, Pisco didn't moderate his chat when they were calling Kirk fascist. There were people in his chat saying Kirk is a Nazi.
No, that's not the same.
No, why not? Why not? Explain why.
To make it the same, you would have to have people in your chat that were saying we should unalive Charlie Kirk.
Explicitly.
Yes.
Explicitly. And if the case is that if I see that and don't moderate the thing, I'm responsible for Kirk's death. I want to hear you say that.
I would say in that moment that you were responsible for contributing to a culture of political violence. Yes, I would say that about you.
So without any evidence that Tyler Robinson, that first of all, that my contribution.
No, we would have to not know we would have to not know who shot him for this to be analogous, right?
So at the time, right? I saw someone say kill Charlie Kirk, and I'm just like, whatever, I'm not going to ban this guy. At that moment, I am contributing to a culture that could cause the death of Charlie Kirk, and so I'm partly culpable if he's killed.
I see where you're going with this, but but in that moment, you would be contributing in your own way. I think that is like a much more kind of abstract kind of situation here, because Charlie Kirk has the attention of like so many other people, so it's almost like infinitely bigger than what we're talking about right now. Whereas what I'm talking about is a very specific group of like a dozen people who were all pushing the same thing about this situation. But I would say in that moment that you were being irresponsible. I grant that
though. I grant that. But the question isn't, am I being irresponsible? I'm going to keep going to this.
All right, we're quibbling about like culpability. We're quibbling about the word culpable.
That's precisely what we're doing.
It's a difference of opinion. I think we've reached the point where it's just like agree to disagree. I do think you have a responsibility, and I think they all.
But when you say that, it's a point that I
danced and joked about this situation, and it was fucking disgusting.
Don't say it like I don't think they have a responsibility. You just heard me acknowledge that I think they have a responsibility for moderating and applying standards of decency and whatever and all that stuff. What I'm saying isn't that they don't have a responsibility. What I'm saying isn't that they don't have a responsibility. What I'm saying isn't that they don't have a responsibility. What I'm saying is they don't have a culpable responsibility for the specific malicious act underneath.
No, but you just said a moment ago. You just said a moment ago that there's a non-zero chance that Denham's rhetoric and behavior that day indirectly led to it happening. You said there was a non-zero chance, right?
There's a non-zero chance that yours did, right?
No, there's not. You would agree.
Is there a non-zero chance that yours did?
You would agree that there's a significant difference.
Is there a non-zero chance yours did?
What would you estimate? are the chances that it came from my audience versus Denham's. I want you to answer that question.
Yeah. So I think that yours is probably smaller, but you
how much smaller? I want to give me a percentage.
Probably, given the scope of your audience and your statements, in my opinion, significantly smaller. But hang on.
No. I want a number. I want a number. What's the percentage likelihood that it came from my audience versus Denham's? If you had to pick numbers.
I think orders of magnitude, maybe something like...
Okay, then stop, man. Come on.
But Hutch, listen to my thing. You said that a sufficient condition is non-zero chance. That's your standard. So I acknowledge that there's a difference between the likelihood between your audience and hers. But what you said, right? I'm just reflecting your standard, what you said to me. And I just want to remind you, you said, but you acknowledge there's a non-zero chance. And so I come to you. Well, you agree in your case there's a non-zero chance. So you say, well, isn't there a difference between us? Yeah. But so we have to actually get in the weeds about what we think is significant.
But do you know why?
You don't want to get in those weeds.
No, but we can. There's a big difference here in this situation. Because you know why I'm not culpable? You know why I could rest my head at night knowing that I didn't contribute to it?
Because you condemned it.
I never fucking made the claim that it was justified to call CPS, and I never would ever, no matter how much I disliked a creator, I would never allow my chat to do that.
You said you're not culpable because you didn't make the claim that it would be justified to call CPS.
And I actively moderate my chat.
Did Denham's, wait, so I'll just ask them one at a time. Did Denham's make the claim that it would be justified to call CPS? Did she make the claim? Did she make the statement?
Why are we circling? Are we circling back to this for the fourth time now? The three factors. We're back there. We're back there now.
These are like ad hoc factors that you've created. That it's
ad hoc. What are you talking? Yeah, they're not relevant. What do you mean?
They're outcome oriented. They're the three sacred factors because these are what you think that for the purpose of getting to the results you want. Those are the ones that matter to you. But the three factors that you're talking about,
they matter just because they matter, bro. I'm telling you why she was irresponsible.
Okay, but hang on. I grant that it was irresponsible. So
I'm telling you how she was negligent.
I don't know why you keep doing this, right? I granted in the first second that it was irresponsible. Do you remember when I granted that in the first second? Do you remember that? I'm asking that question.
Yeah, but I can't reconcile it with everything else you're saying, though, because it's like,
you really don't see a difference between ethical responsibility versus one obligation with respect to your moderation and the responsibility for the underlying malicious act. You really don't understand the difference between those two.
I mean, I recall earlier in this conversation, you were saying like she didn't have an ethical responsibility to moderate her chat. And then now it sounds like you're singing a different tune.
I never said that, Hutch.
Well, we'd have to go back in the fucking stream, but I'm pretty sure you said that.
Go in the VOD.
Pretty sure.
The fucking VOD, man. I was consistent. You said, does it increase the risk? Yes. Is there an ethical obligation? Ought she do it? I said, yeah, she ought not play the. Actually, I'm going to ask you. Do you remember when I said that she should not have played that Bad Empanada clip? Do you remember when I said that?
Not really. My brain's mush at this point.
So like, why? If you're not remembering,
no, it's because I'm frazzled because my brain is fried trying to walk you through my thinking here and trying to like navigate your craftiness, your caginess, your lawyer tricks.
There's no tricks, bro.
Yeah, you are.
It's their rights or infringements of privacy or malicious conduct. That those kinds of implications are different as between those two ethical obligations. That is a very simple, clean concept, and that's not confusing at all. And it ought not be confusing for you either.
Sorry, my stream is experiencing problems. It does this. I don't know why it's doing this. It's weird. It's the same time every day at like 3:30. I start dropping hella frames and it gets bad. And I don't know what.
It's Newsom's rolling blackouts, man. These California people, they want to turn our country into Russia. So
I don't know Russia. Hey, listen. At the end of the day, I think you think that Ethan's actions were disproportionate, and I already told you, like, I'm open to that. So I don't even know what we're arguing about. Like, I'm open to the idea that, like, and I don't have a good answer for you, like I don't know. I can't tell you if it's like too much or if it's appropriate. All I can tell you is that if I was in Ethan's position, I fully understand. his desire to try to impose consequences.
The question isn't, do you understand it, right?
Yes.
I understand that on Ethan's view, it's trivially obvious that he would understand that he would have that view because he's the one doing it.
And he'd be justified.
Isn't on his view.
And he'd be
it's
justified.
on your view as you.
No, but I'm trying to give you the best answer I can, and I'm not trying to be a cop out. I'm not trying to give you a cop out answer. Like I'm really not. Like
but how it feels is like, you ever have those Israel-Palestine debates where people are like, I understand why Israel would do this. I understand if I was Israel, why they would do this, or I understand why, or even from the leftist perspective, I understand why Hamas would do that.
Yeah,
and if I was in the Hamas shoes,
I've had those conversations. I've said those words.
Like, who the fuck cares? Like that's just trivial. It's obvious that if you're Hamas, you're gonna understand. You're gonna like have the sympathies that Hamas does, and same thing with Ben Gvir.
I've had those conversations. I've had literally those conversations. So like I understand. But
that is useless, like masturbation. It's not how, like the question is.
I don't think it's useless. I mean,
our views.
No, I don't think it's useless because like listen, like there is no like science to this. You know what I mean? Like there just isn't. We can't. You can try to appeal with like laws of logic and that kind of stuff, but like there is no like explicitly correct answer here, and I am trying to be nuanced, and that's not me like trying to wiggle out of taking your position or whatever. Like I am sympathetic to like all the parties involved here. I'm less sympathetic to Denims these days, to be honest with you. I'm less sympathetic to her because I just, I don't know if you saw her recent stream, but it's a bit much. Like
sympathetic for Casey-tron if you think she did this horrible thing and that she's culpable for this awful. You called her sociopathic. Do you realize you call her sociopathic?
Yeah, I think she did.
Why would you feel sympathy for a sociopath? I don't understand on your view how you could feel that.
I feel sympathy for people that get the death penalty. I feel sympathy for people that are in prison for the rest of their lives.
You feel sympathy for Hitler? Is that what you mean? The Kanye West version?
You're really testing my morals here, but like no, I do try to empathize with people that I don't even like. Like I do try to, I do have sympathy for people that have done terrible things.
Sociopaths that want to do horrible things that are malicious in all their conduct.
Yeah.
And that want to take Ethan's kids away. You feel sympathetic for them.
Yeah, of course.
And you don't want to ruin financially sociopaths who only produce malice and bad things in the world. I mean,
depends on the day you ask me. Depends on the day you ask me and what mood I'm in, I suppose, right? Isn't that what it is to be a human being? Like, do we really have perfectly consistent kind of?
I guess.
Like,
you know what? I'll grant you this, Hutch. There are some times when I'm like, you know what? Hitler didn't choose to have the brain he did. These sociopaths, they are born / nurtured in a particular way that makes them the way they are.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I didn't think that that's what you were talking about, that ultimately elastic version of sympathy when you were talking about Casey-tron. It seemed like you weren't sympathetic in the sense of, well, I'm sympathetic to all beings, regardless of what causes them. I thought that you were saying something more particular about her circumstances and like that don't have to do with like this kind of like ultimately totally expansive version. No,
it's like both. Sympathy. It's both of those things. Like, you know, the idea of like everybody in her, I don't know if she's supporting her family. I'm not 100% up to date on her situation there, but no, I wouldn't like the idea of like her family, losing their home or something like that. If they were relying on her for income.
Overall, it's beneficial. Then like, okay, maybe you feel some sympathy, but like she deserves it. She deserves to have to pay.
But he didn't do
money,
that though.
Right?
He didn't do that though.
No, I'm asking you, like, do you think that she deserved what she got?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though the copyright infringement has literally zero to do with
what
we're talking about.
I think she deserved that little walk of shame. Yeah, I think she earned that. I'm glad she doesn't have to pay money for the rest of her life.
Are you?
I think she deserved that.
Was an insincere apology. Do you often like people to give insincere apologies and you get gratification out of it?
What kind of a question is that? This is not a very normal thing that comes up in life, does it? Yeah.
I don't know why people get like satisfaction out of these like fake apologies that aren't actual like just desserts. Maybe in the sense of like,
well,
if I was pushed that what they did was like truly horrendous or whatever, the mere fact that it's maybe it is a deterrent effect of some kind, but that's just going to ground out into our priors about and evidence for the purpose of the lawsuit. So maybe that's what why there's a distinction.
Well, do you think that there should have been any consequences for what they did?
For copyright infringement?
No. Well, Sure. I mean, I don't know. That's a separate discussion. I don't care about that discussion. But like, I'm talking about this. I'm talking about
Isn't
this.
that the whole purpose? Like the whole purpose is whether or not we agree with the lawsuits, and the lawsuits are about copyright infringement. Like,
It's about,
how can you
it's
say
about
you
the
don't care about
lawsuit
that?
specifically, but it's more about just this idea of like imposing consequences on somebody who violated your family. Isn't that what it's about?
Yeah, but you don't agree with beating them up.
Sure. I obviously think that I don't think they should be killed, either.
You don't think
like,
someone should, I mean, you don't think that someone should call CPS on them, right?
No, I don't. No, I think
Right,
that
so,
was really bad.
You have your
No,
lines.
no,
right?
answer the question. Like, should there be any consequences, right? Like, it doesn't need to be legal, but like some accountability, some kind of punishment, some kind of something, right?
Yes, they should get like a slap on the wrist from Twitch.
All right, then that's the disagreement. Just the severity of it. Like, we agree that she did a bad thing and she deserved consequences. We disagree. I think she got off, right? Like, what?
You should moderate your chat more so that they're not actively calling for CPS. That's what should happen.
And you definitely should not be joking about it after the fact.
It should be proportional and tailored to the kind of thing we're talking about here. That's number one. And number two, separately, if someone is being deceptive,
He settled though. He didn't make her destitute. All she had to do was apologize. All she had to do was get up there and prostrate herself a little bit and apologize.
What? So the apology was extracted by what?
He had leverage.
It was coerced by financial motivations, correct?
Because she violated copyright, correct?
Right. That don't relate in sum or substance to the underlying claim. Fair?
No. I think it's both. Like, I think he genuinely does care about like Lazy React, and I think he felt. But if I had to guess, I really don't know. If I had to guess, I would say he was probably more motivated by the abuse that his family suffered as a result of like a culture that arose out of all of their communities.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. Don't you agree that he wanted them to infringe?
Yeah, I think so. I think he was setting a trap.
Yeah. So in what sense can you say he wanted to punish them for infringement, and that that this was a bad thing that was done to him?
It was an easy, predictable thing,
He wanted, but you're saying he wanted it to occur.
Yeah.
Right. So the harm
there, but wanting something to occur, like I might want a bad thing to happen because I think a better thing will follow that bad thing. Like we're confronted with this in politics all the time, right?
Right. So right. So that's my point, that the thing that is achieving the better result isn't the grounding for the basis of what's going on. It's the pretext. It's a pretext. Do you agree it's a pretext?
But it is to a certain degree. But again, we disagree because I think it's both. I do think he does genuinely care about Lazy React. He obviously cares about it. He's had a history of caring about it. He confronted XQC about it, talked about it on his podcast all the time. So clearly this guy was already, like, he does like give a fuck about that, right?
I mean, I grant that at least at some point he did care about the React community, that he did care about copyright infringement. What I deny is that this lawsuit is motivated by that concern. That's what I deny.
But where's your certainty though? Where do you get the certainty?
It's based on my what I think are reasonable inferences on a set of evidence. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, but you'd have to explain, like, so like you acknowledge that he has a history of talking about Lazy React, and he definitely cares about that, right? Okay,
yes,
so
that's
but
one of the reasons
that is gone.
No. That is part of my rationale for why it isn't motivating this. So the fact that he has a track record here is not helpful for him in this context, given the nature of what his stated rationale was. It's hurtful. And that seems preposterous to you. I can explain why.
I'm a little stuck on your thing of like, oh, well, why would you want the bad thing to happen when you're against the bad thing? But it's like, you could use that logic to say like, well, like, why did the FBI do a sting operation where there was a drug transfer, like selling drugs is bad, right? So that doesn't make any sense. Do you understand that logic is a little flawed?
What logic are you? I mean,
you're saying like, oh, well, how could you say he says he's against the thing, but he trapped them to do the thing, and it's like, well, I don't understand.
Listen, what I'm saying is, if you have a prior principle that one upholds, and one sticks to the principle, then I think that justifies an inference that one is maintaining the principle. But if there's as opposed to a blank slate, if there's a previous principle and that one makes statements either in contradiction or that undermine that principle previously stated, I think that most people, in view of those, what I take to be an inconsistent application of previously stated principles, the inference usually from that is indicative of more deceit, right? A prior inconsistent statement and statements that don't make sense in light of each other, that from that, I think normally people intuit deception, okay? That this is not like a crazy
he was being
concept.
deceptive in setting a trap, sure. You know?
Well, not merely that. I mean, that I think at a bare minimum you have to establish. And
But
also,
I don't see the issue with that, you know? Like you're deceptive when you set a trap for like vermin in your garden. You know what I mean?
No, I understand that there are contexts in which deception can be justified. All right, that's not what I'm suggesting. The deception that I think is not justified is what he's stating to the audience, and this is what he's stating to the audience. That part of the reason, one of the main reasons, in fact, for bringing this lawsuit, is to set a precedent to protect the destruction of the React community as we know it from absolutely shattering precedent that Disney or Sony could set. Those are his words, Hutch. Do you believe those words?
I have no reason to disbelieve them explicitly, to be honest, no.
Okay, the reason I disbelieve them is because A, they're not plausible. They're not plausible at all. The notion that Ethan might think that suing like Denims and Casey-tron and Frogan would at all affect the nature of Disney and Sony suing and establishing terrible precedent, that is preposterous. The more outlandish a belief is, the more unlikely it is that someone actually holds it. That's only part. I mean, there's so much more.
Well, what if he's just wrong then? That wouldn't mean that he's lying. Like, what if he believes it but is wrong?
I understand that by itself, it doesn't necessarily prove to 100% certainty or even fucking a 90% certainty that's what's going on. That's just part. I'm building blocks, all right? And you have to look at the wall as a whole, at the totality of circumstances. So the first piece of evidence is the rank and plausibility of the claim. The notion that someone who's fairly, learned about copyright infringement, this guy, had lawsuits regarding copyright infringement that he's lost before, I think, and he's also won against the bold guy, that he has this view that this intentional stated malice is the sine qua non of copyright infringement. The kind of way that he presents it in the video is preposterous. One, as a legal matter. Second, the notion that someone like that Ethan Klein thinks that when he establishes precedent on fair use, given his view that the vast majority of these kinds of React channels, that there's rampant theft, what he calls theft of intellectual property, that any kind of decision, any kind of legal decision, either from a legal precedent perspective, that legal precedent is going to protect the React community as opposed to significantly curtail the current meta, which is overwhelmingly infringing, is ludicrous. He must know that in pressing a claim on a reaction video, he is going to give the court an opportunity to opine on the 4 fair use factors. By the way, they're not exhaustive, but the 4 main fair use factors.
I read them yesterday.
In such a way, right. So, for example, for purpose and character of the work, usually the main focus of the inquiry there is transformation. Any precedent on summary judgment or dispositive motion related to whether this is transformative or whether there's the character or purpose of use sides on the side of fair use, the court in coming to these determinations go through all the factors, and they're going to go factor 1. This is not transformative. It's not transformative because look at the percentage of the video, look at how much commentary is in there, commercial purpose. Is this providing sufficient commentary? Mm-hmm. How many portions of it, include commentary such that you actually need this? And the tests start to merge because the purpose and character of the use merges with like the amount and substantiality. Here, Denham's used all of it. She used the heart of the work. Was that necessary to the nature of her critique, especially when she's spending, this amount of time kind of giving just blithe remarks? Look at this precedent from SDNY with this judge in previous cases where it's more of like a watch party as opposed to, deliberately spliced things. Anyone with a single brain cell, and Ethan surely knows this, knows that these courts, they go 1, 2, 3, 4. And those factors aren't just going to bear poorly on denims, it's going to bear poorly on the React meta as a whole. The specific thing he's saying, he has no intention to undermine, and that is with respect to XQC, etc. But we can keep going.
Wouldn't it be the purpose and character of the use? Wouldn't that be the key consideration here?
The stated intentional malice? Fuck no. There's a case called Warhol, and what Sonia Sotomayor in the majority writes is that purpose and character of the use is an objective factor. It is not subjective. That the mere statements of the artist don't make a particular purpose or character of the use a particular thing or not. That case was decided recently, and there is certain statements from old cases like Harper and Rowe from the Supreme Court that suggest that like good faith might play a role in an analysis. But in the most recent precedent on SCOTUS and in the Warhol decision, they said it's an objective inquiry. It's not about intentional stated. Like you could say, so for example, it would be like saying the following, right? At the start of your stream, you go, this is transformative, this is fair use, therefore it's fair use and transformative. The mere statements of an individual is not part of the analysis at all.
Okay. All right. Now I'm curious. Do you even disagree with Ethan that there is rampant sort of abuse of copyright?
Of course not. No.
You don't agree with that?
No, I don't disagree with that.
Okay, so
that's why I think that that's one of the reasons that this is disingenuous.
Okay, so you don't disagree that there's rampant abuse of fair use with but you,
as exemplified by
don't,
XQC, Asmongold, Hassan Piker, all these people.
So what is your ideal remedy here? To write new laws to expand fair use, or because you're saying you don't want them to come back with a decision that will like fatally chill the React community so as to basically like destroy it. So like what is your preferred remedy to this situation?
I just want to be clear. It doesn't bear on what I think the deception is here.
I just want to know, because if you don't disagree,
out of curiosity, I do think that the current law is such that these React streams are basically 80% infringement, and I think that there ought to be new laws that clarify the scope of reaction videos. Maybe they're platform specific. Maybe they have certain sets of factors. But no, I don't think that in fact the current laws as they are would be approving of the kinds of content that you're seeing from all these React streamers.
Yeah, it's like when video games first started showing up on YouTube stuff, technically all those gaming companies could have filed copyright claims, and they still could today. In fact, they do sometimes. I think Nintendo has done it.
What do they do, Hutch, when there's an infringement?
They take the video down. There's like a DMCA claim, and they take the video down, right? Yeah. So like, but the thing with the video games is like they all realized that they would probably make more money if they just allowed YouTube content, because getting all these views or whatever. And so there's been
some have chosen not to press potential claims that they have.
The vast majority.
I would say most go through the DMCA.
For video game stuff? No, definitely not.
To the extent that there's infringing content.
Well, it's all infringing. That's the point. Like anytime you post a video of like yourself playing Call of Duty.
To the extent that there's infringement and they have a desire to take action, what they do is they don't file a lawsuit. They have a DMCA takedown.
Right.
So the notion that setting precedent, that's an additional reason that this isn't plausible. The notion that setting precedent in the form of a legal ruling, which by the way, now he's settling, which he isn't achieving. So I guess I don't know what precedent it is, but to the extent that there is any precedent, it's not going to curtail these kinds of the main enforcement mechanisms of things like Disney and Sony, which is not through lawsuits. It's through DMCA takedown notices that people don't contest, and that they are able to take down shit. So like it's not in any respect protecting only a fool, only someone who is so deranged and it really has no understanding would think that this had any effect on what Disney or Sony is going to do. And that's even further emphasized by the fact that he's settling with fucking Casey-tron for marginal amounts in which there's no fucking precedent that's been established, other than he leaned on people for apologies that don't relate in any respect to the kind of thing that he's talking about in the initial video.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between you and me, is that and you might be right that that's what he did. Like maybe he didn't that had nothing to do with copyright. And I guess the difference between you and me is like that does not bother me in the way that it bothers you.
So if the only intention was to make these people destitute, and he's lying, or to impose a punishment for the other statements that don't relate to the
clearly he didn't want to make her destitute, right? Like he settled, right?
I'm saying if the purpose is not to protect the React community, but is instead only for something that he is not at all in any respect to protect the React community. If that's the case, you would have a problem with it, wouldn't you? I thought you said that lying in general is bad.
No, I didn't say, no. I said that precisely the opposite. I said not all lies are created equal. And this particular lie, because it's kind of content at the same time, right? Like he's got his own retribution, his own kind of cause of retribution. And it's also like this, it's like a spectacle all at the same time. And so, no, I don't
know how that affects the moral calculus, that it's a spectacle. I mean, a lot of things could be spectacles, and I don't know how that, what does that affect the intuitions here?
I'm saying that it's like a show. It's like I think he wanted to publicly punish these people. And I understand why he feels that way.
That's my point. So we agree.
Right. I don't know if I ever disagree with that, but like, I don't see that as necessarily a bad thing. The only
lies about it.
The only
says it's to protect from Disney and Sony when it is so clearly not. And also it's specifically not on the ground that he states, which he couldn't have predicted at the time he set the trap, the intentional stated malice. That is certainly not what he was planning to do when he set the trap. So in order to even buy that was in his mind, you'd have to acknowledge that he changed his mind about which precedent he wanted to set in between when he set the trap and when they did it.
Maybe he's all over the place. Maybe he convinced himself. Maybe he's lying. Maybe it's just.
But this is ultimate charity. This is ultimate charity to Ethan Klein that you don't apply in the slightest to the people that you hate.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I don't have enough information. Like I could reach out and ask him, but like I don't pry to that level. Like I just don't know, and I don't know him.
All I want him is to acknowledge. All right, this is what I want. What I want him to acknowledge is basically, okay, it's not true. When I started with this whole ReactGate stuff, this isn't about that. It's not about protecting from Sony and Disney. That was wrong when I said that, and I was, that really wasn't at all motivating me. That's what I think.
Isn't that kind of implied when he settled with Casey Tron, and now it looks pretty likely that he's settling with Frogan as well? Isn't it kind of implied?
Point. So what you just said, isn't it implied that isn't at all motivating him when he settles?
So you're mad that he lied? That's what this is? Like that seems like such a minor part of this entire story.
I'm mad that he lied, and also even though I don't think it's a legal bar to bring in the claim, I actually think it's chicken shit to use the copyright statute to settle scores, even if it's a valid claim. I'm saying even if it's a valid claim, I think it's chicken shit and wrong to use the copyright statute to primarily like settle scores on unrelated matters. Especially when you have go for it.
If you felt like somebody abused your family, like actually abused your family, like very substantively, impactfully abused your family?
Well, one, I think you would have to raise to a certain level of misconduct, and then it's going to ground out into what we're talking about before, where you could see.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. But second to that, I think that like if they abuse, you should like sue them for the abusive conduct. You should do the thing that's tailored to the issue. I'm not a big fan of these pretext shit, and I especially don't like that it's kind of sullying my image of Ethan as a defender of copyright, the sane copyright approach, which he did, right? It was beautiful, magical when he was attacking XQC for his garbage, malicious conduct, which it was. And Ethan Klein says it was intentional siphoning when XQC did it. And so I don't buy this thing. It's like, I don't mind thieving. What I mind is when you say you're thieving. That's what really bothers me. Like, this shit is bullshit. And I had this very positive view of Ethan Klein as one of the best people of like the lay people and the influencers on copyright. He would always jump to have like a calibrated take that wasn't far lefty, get rid of all intellectual property, get rid of copyright, get rid of patents. It's all theft. But he didn't go as far as like XQC saying like, or sorry, the opposite of saying we should enforce all the time and there should be no room for fair use, that kind of thing. I really appreciated that. And this sullies my image of it. And don't try to fucking, and also personally, if we're going to go by malice, calling me Mike from PA, dude, what the fuck? What the fuck? And then also, by the way.
Wait, did I say that?
No, not you. He did. He quote tweeted you, not too dissimilar to how you quote tweeted Taylor Lorenz. We need to talk about that, by the way.
Wait, when did he quote tweet?
Omitting context.
When did he quote tweet me? Ethan did?
Yeah, well, he on Insta, and then he basically said, "What is this dude like, Mike from PA? You didn't stand up for me then. Just saying.
I don't think I saw that. Did I see that?
See it? Okay, but he's basically comparing me to some lolcow, and or people who consider a lolcow who never actually, as I understand, was admitted to the bar, implying that I'm not a real lawyer, implying that I'm, misrepresenting myself, whatever, and basically,
I stick up for you, bro. I do.
I'm just saying, like that happened, and
that's
and,
I don't.
look,
first of all, I'm not.
To be you, Ethan. Like,
okay,
have a conversation with me, or Dan Saltman, have a conversation with me.
I mean, I would like to see you guys have a conversation.
Hell yeah.
But talk about moderation. Like sometimes our spicy interactions evoke strong opinions in my chat, and you can ask my chat. I tell them all the time. Like I tell them all the time that we need to compartmentalize. Like for me, I'm a big boy. I know you're a big boy. I know you like the intellectual exercise of arguing. It's fun for you in the same way that it is for me. You've sharpened your brain a little bit more than I have in terms of like all the legal stuff. But like I tell my chat all the time, like when that argument is over, we're good. And so like I try in my own little way to manipulate and dissuade people in my chat.
I get you. We're good. But all I'm saying is like, I understand that people kind of have this question, why is he spending so much time on it? Part of it is because as I think about it more, I just do think that there are certain standards that we should expect from our creators. And I think in most cases, I give you, for example, like the Tim Pool example, where let's say that you were reacting to something and it was clearly copyright infringement, and he's just trying to fuck with you because you said something about Russia. Like we would all stand up for you and be like, hey, if you have a problem with what Hutch said about the Russia thing, why don't you address it? Why don't you actually have that conversation? And we would all kind of stand up. And so I'm just trying to say, like, how would we react to this kind of tactic? And in general, most people would be against it. The one situation where we would be in favor of it, if there's some really just like predominating fucked up shit that these people did to a certain degree of threshold. And what I've heard from people with respect to their misconduct is in the realm of, I'm just sorry to say, it's not this kind of like, we're extolling you to call CPS, maybe bad empanada. So sue at bad empanada on that stuff. But I haven't seen the evidence for these people to suggest that like they rise to that threshold where I would kind of be accepting of this tactic. And so that's what I'm saying. I mean, like at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. But it is a kind of tactic that I find unsavory, and I think it's wrong. But you can disagree, man.
I mean, I hear that. I do. I hear that. And I also know that if somebody like Esme's pretty insulated from internet stuff, thankfully she there's been some weirdos that have reached out to her and like, but if I felt like an entire collective community like pulled together and started attacking her and making her life like really bad, and I had leverage, I would probably use that leverage to try to like push back against those people. Whether it's like legal leverage or whatever, like I think I would be similarly compelled to take action to try to punish those people for hurting her. So that's what I think about more. Like that's where my mind goes.
Okay, so if that's what's going on, then don't give us this whole like. And if you're trying to bait them into something where you would have leverage, which was his plan, I don't want to hear this implausible story that. Also, coincidentally, magically, I was thinking about the broader React community. If that's what it is, at least let's be honest about it. You know, that's all I want. And if people say I don't give a fuck what Pisco's saying, just you can say that, but then don't dispute it, right? Then don't dispute it and just grant it and say I just don't care because they're good targets and that they ought to be for what they did to Ethan punished in this way. At least be honest.
And again, I'm not speaking for Ethan. I don't have any special insight. I don't know if that's the thing that motivates him. Like, I can't. I'm just saying, like, if that was the case, if he was motivated, I could understand that impulse. But
then why hasn't he? Can I ask you a question then? Why hasn't he celebrated this as a massive win for the React community?
I don't know. I think it's likely that he was primarily motivated by a desire to punish those people. I don't find that controversial or right, but like I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Like that's where my mind goes. I think like, well, yeah, like obviously he would be compelled to do stuff like that.
if you thought that this was a massive win that just vindicated you and protected, we're saved, this helps us against Disney and Sony, why isn't he doing those kinds of things?
Yeah. Again, my guess is, my guess is that he was more motivated by retribution. That's what I would guess. But I gotta go, man. It's been a long conversation.
Tomorrow Monday, are we talking to Loanerbox?
I think so. Yeah, I got to reach out to him, but yeah, we'll set something up.
Hutch, I love you, man. I
know, buddy. I love you too, buddy.
Live and learn, but I do want you to know that I don't want anybody to be fucking harassing you. I don't want people to do any of that shit, and I really do appreciate our back and forth. I think that they provide some life for live and learn, and I again don't want anything negative directed your way from anybody.
Same to you. Enjoy your weekend. I'll talk to you in a couple of days.
You as well.
All right.
Hey,
bye-bye.
Stay cool.